LoveLore Library. Chapter 103. However, there were also people who sighed that Jin Qinhuang's action was fast enough. This person was still in Great Elder Princess's residence, and the other side had already reported to Lu Qingdi. He really disliked Sun Yijia from the bottom of his heart. Otherwise, why would he be so proactive? Because it was his younger sister's birthday, Lu Qingdi specially gave all the officials a day off. If they were all happy, he could also have a day of fun. Therefore, Lu Qingdi wanted to let his younger sister celebrate her birthday without restraint. He also wanted to use this opportunity to slack off. Throughout the year, except for the 23rd day of the 12th lunar month at the end of the year, he was basically idle until the 15th day of the next year. There was no day when he was not busy. The officials had a break from time to time, but he, as the emperor, had to work hard every day. Even if he did not go to court, he had to read memorials and deal with political affairs. He originally thought that he could steal half a day of leisure, but in the end, something happened. This daughter-in-law who had not married into the family was gone. However, it was just like Li Hongyuan. Lu Qingdi had long been used to it. Fortunately, this prospective daughter-in-law was not as miserable as the previous ones. If she could get married peacefully, it would be a good sign. Therefore, it was better not to change the time of marriage. In fact, if possible, Lu Qingdi hoped that Sun Yijia would get married tomorrow. Unfortunately, even if he was the emperor, he could not do such a thing. Lu Qingdi hugged imperial concubine Su and sighed. When could he see his sixth daughter-in-law? Imperial concubine Su comforted him. Wasn't there a side concubine about to enter the family? Even if a side concubine is on the imperial jade plate, she is only a concubine. How can she be regarded as a daughter-in-law? This unintentional sentence fiercely stabbed imperial concubine Su's heart. A side concubine of a prince was not a prince's daughter-in-law. The emperor's concubines, except for the empress, were naturally not the emperor's daughter-in-law. No matter how nice it was to be praised by the world, in fact, they were still concubines. The only difference was that they were divided into different grades. Then it's better for Yuan to directly marry that girl of the Ruan family as his legal wife. The Grand Secretary may be happier in his heart. Lu Qingdi was slightly conflicted, but he still told imperial concubine Su the truth. There's a problem with that girl's fate. If she enters the imperial family, she can't be the wife of the first wife. Otherwise, it will bring disaster. According to their ages, old 9th and old 10th can actually choose her as their first consort. When you guys first proposed it, I also rejected it because of this. Imperial concubine Su was shocked. Your Majesty, are you serious? Which great master said that? Master Liaochen. I don't remember the exact year, but it was when I went to the White Dragon Temple to burn incense. I asked Minister Ruan to accompany me, and he brought his youngest daughter with him. At that time, Master Liaochen told me. Speaking of which, I was indeed muddle-headed a few days ago. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let her enter the imperial family. Today, I'm really happy that it was this girl who got into trouble. On that day, what else did Lu Qingdi remember other than a dead man? Noble consort Su even had the urge to vomit blood. If they had hidden it for so long, then the various schemes they had made to win over Elder Ruan in the past few years had actually been smashed to death by Emperor Lu Qingdi from the very beginning. Had they only schemed against Ruan Fangfei's marriage once or twice? Definitely not. However, they had always been defeated by Emperor Lu Qingdi in the end. Each time, they had gnashed their teeth in hatred, thinking that it was another enemy's doing. In reality, it wasn't. Why didn't your Majesty say so earlier? Was he deliberately playing with them? Because Master Liaochen said that before that girl's marriage was confirmed, it wasn't appropriate to announce it for fear of causing trouble. In fact, according to Master Liaoqin's suggestion, it was better to keep her away from the imperial family. Speaking of now, she hasn't entered Old Sixth's residence yet, and Old Sixth has that kind of fate. I'm worried that something will happen to her. How could this be? Noble Consort Su was in disbelief. How could such a good girl have such a strange fate? Because it was Master Liaoqin who said it, Noble Consort Su never doubted the authenticity of this matter. Beloved consort, it's best to keep this matter a secret for now. If she can enter the residence safely, that would be the best. If something happens again, then there's nothing we can do. Rest assured, Your Majesty. Did Li Hongyuan know about Wan Fangfei's strange fate? Of course he did. It probably had something to do with him. In fact, Master Liaoqin had diagnosed this fate the year Wan Fangfei met Li Hongyuan for the first time. Because of her stubbornness towards Li Hongyuan, if she married someone else from the imperial family, the members of the imperial family would still frequently interact with each other. Do you think she would know her place? It was better to stop dreaming. If she did, then trouble was inevitable. The imperial family usually didn't have a concubine appear before the main wife. As a concubine, she couldn't enter the palace without announcing it. If she entered the palace, she would usually be by the side of the main wife. That way, there would be fewer chances for her to cause trouble. Of course, it was best to keep her away from the imperial family, or rather, from Li Hongyuan. When she was so far away that she couldn't reach out to him, then she would probably stop. Li Hongyuan knew this, so why did he keep her? Because at certain times, this person was really useful. Li Hongyuan's goal in this life was very clear. In terms of power, he either wanted to become the emperor, or he wanted to be the uncrowned king. In terms of his wife, he only had one goal, and that was Jingwan. Other than her, he wouldn't let anyone else sit in this position, even if it was just a decoration. In the future, he wouldn't let Jingwan sit in this position. He knew very well that Jingwan didn't want to be a concubine, nor did she want to be a second wife. Moreover, the second wife was originally inferior to the first wife. How could he let another woman climb over Wan's head? Just in terms of status wasn't enough. However, there was an age gap of 8 years between him and Jingwan. She had to be at least 14 years old before she could marry him. According to the situation in his previous life, Jingwan would only enter the capital at this time. Because before that, Li Hongyuan didn't think that Jingwan might have a special background. He didn't want to disrupt her growth trajectory and grow into someone he was unfamiliar with because of the change of environment. Therefore, when he could marry her, she would be at least 15 or 16 years old, and he would be 23 or 24 years old. At 16 years old, he could already marry a wife. In the middle of 7 or 8 years, he couldn't keep delaying his marriage. Noble Consort Su wouldn't allow it, and Emperor Lu Qingdi wouldn't allow it. He also had to find excuses. After delaying it for 7 or 8 years, if he suddenly wanted to marry a woman with a big difference in status, anyone would think that there was a problem. That would bring trouble to Jingwan. The best way was for them to choose someone for her or grant her a marriage. Then, he would accept it and make them disappear one by one. Don't say that those women were innocent. There were too many innocent women in the world. As for those who were truly innocent, it wasn't that he couldn't give them a way out. It wasn't that he was kind, it was just that he wanted to accumulate good fortune for Jingwan. After all, he was the main culprit of their misfortune, but Jingwan was actually the cause. He didn't care whether he would get retribution or not, but he didn't want Jingwan to have to bear these inexplicable grievances. Not long after Li Hongyuan established his residence, he had his first fiancée. She was someone chosen by Noble Consort Su. She was from Noble Consort Su's maiden family. This woman was also his consort in his previous life. He had said before that noble consort Su didn't treat him badly except for one or two things. The woman she chose was the same. He married her at the age of 18. Until he was 24, this woman was devoted to him wholeheartedly. Until some cruel truths were uncovered, he was forced to leave the capital for a year. What he experienced during this time was really hard to describe. However, all of the suffering was because he met and truly understood the best woman in the world. He didn't care about those things. After he returned, the first thing he did was to strangle his consort to death. In this life, 3 months after his engagement with that woman, she suddenly died in a dark alley during the Lantern Festival. She had been humiliated to death. Her death was tragic. From head to toe, there was not a single part of her body that was intact. Half a year later, noble consort Su chose a second person for him. It was a woman who had nothing to do with him in his previous life. In fact, she had married well in her previous life and lived a good life. Li Hongyuan let her fall off a cliff to her death, but in reality, he had secretly sent her away. A year later, when he was 18, noble consort Su chose a third person for him. This time, when he was about to make a move, someone made a move before him. It was a young girl. She was innocent and kind. She was only 12 years old, but she didn't care about his increasingly bad reputation and frequently appeared in front of him. With his previous life's experience, he knew that this young girl couldn't be underestimated. His third fiancée had already met with an accident. His reputation as a jinx to his wife was basically set. Noble consort Su felt sorry for him. She was always worried that he didn't have a proper person to take care of him. She coaxed and pestered Lu Qingdi. This time, she directly bestowed a marriage to a woman from a good family. In less than a month, another accident happened. She didn't die, but was seriously injured and disabled. Fifth, her innocence was ruined and she committed suicide by hanging herself. Sixth, when she went out on a rainy day, she fell into a pond and drowned. Seventh, Sun Yijia, if he personally arranged to get rid of every one of them, not only would it be tiring, but he might also be careless and be noticed by others. However, it was different if he had someone to help him. He only needed to make a move at certain times. For example, before Sun Yijia was lured into the small building, he would remove the knockout drug that Wan Fangfei put on him. Then, he would lure Luo Jinghua over to marry him. That would be enough. Why did he want Wan Fangfei to be his prospective secondary consort? She was no longer young. Instead of letting her scheme against him, it was better to let him take the initiative from the beginning. He knew that she would make a move against Sun Yijia. If she didn't have the status of prospective secondary consort, after getting rid of Sun Yijia, she would naturally take the position of prospective consort. His imperial father wouldn't allow it. Then, he didn't know what she would do. Instead, it was better to let her be a little more obedient. After he arranged everything around Wan and got rid of all the unstable factors, it would be time to deal with Wan Fangfei. Because he didn't need an eighth meaningless fiancée. If it wasn't for Wan's status being too low, he naturally wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. However, Wan's status was getting higher and higher. Of course, these were all added to her, so there were still things that needed to be done. He had already cursed his wife to the point that he couldn't remarry. Now, he just had to wait for her. Your Imperial Majesty, why don't you let Yuan carry her back to the residence as soon as possible to avoid any more trouble? We also want to, but that vile spawn isn't willing. Previously, he sent someone to delay the time for Wan Fangfei to enter the residence. He said that even if he really can't get a wife in his lifetime, he shouldn't act like he won't let go once he catches a woman. It's too ugly. He said that it's not like he doesn't have anyone to warm his bed and serve him. He also said that as his mother, you don't have to worry about him. How could the other princes be so vexed? The matter was decided by their parents. As sons, they only needed to obediently follow their parents' orders. No one dared to disobey. Li Hongyuan couldn't do it. If he didn't agree and you acted on your own initiative, you would be able to cause trouble later on. Lu Qingdi had already learned a lesson from Sun Yijia. If it happened again, that vile spawn wouldn't let it go so easily. It was better to let him do as he wished and avoid making himself suffer. Noble consort Su sighed. All right, don't worry about that vile spawn. Let nature take its course. If it really doesn't work, let him adopt a son in the future. In any case, he was already mentally prepared for that vile spawn to be a bachelor for the rest of his life. As for why he even wanted to adopt a son, Li Hongyuan's reason was also self-righteous. He himself didn't care about the identity of the woman who warmed his bed, but his son's mother couldn't have that kind of birth. At the very least, she had to be legitimate. No matter how low her status was, she had to be a legitimate woman of official birth. In a situation similar to the loyal Wang Fei, he didn't have to do anything. He just killed the person first. These years, there were so many women who came and went by his side, but there wasn't the slightest bit of news. This time, noble consort Su was surprisingly silent. She also didn't say that she would directly choose 2 women of official families and directly carry them into Jin Qin Wang Fu regardless of whether the officials would agree or not. Although in the imperial family, there was a rule that the first wife couldn't enter the imperial family and the concubines couldn't enter the imperial family, special circumstances could also be handled differently. Li Hongyuan cursed his wife to that extent, so naturally, it should be considered a special circumstance. In the first few years, noble consort Su refused to admit that her son was special. Later on, she finally thought it through. However, just as there was a bit of news, the engagement of the women of official families in the capital was like a tide. With such obvious disdain, as a parent, who wouldn't be angry? Who wouldn't be cold-hearted? On the contrary, there were those who took the initiative to bring it up. Noble consort Su felt that they were so proactive. Everyone was well aware of the reason. This kind of person, Ben Gong doesn't want, all of them scram. Due to many reasons, the matter of preparing a concubine had not been completed. However, according to Li Hongyuan's virtue, if he really got such a woman, he could make a reputation of cursing all his wives and concubines. Only those who were casually played with by him would not be cursed by him. Damn, this was the biggest weirdo in the world. Anyway, in order to prevent any woman with a title from appearing around him, Li Hongyuan would do anything. Every time he thought about this kind of thing, he would put a debt on Jingwan and make it up to her. Therefore, Jingwan was completely unaware that she was in debt. If she knew it one day in the future, what kind of expression would she have? The imperial edict had arrived, and the banquet was almost ready. As for those old officials who had not reached the goal, they could only wring their hands a little at this moment. It was inappropriate for them to call Jingwan back. However, after the 18th scholar moved to Great Elder Princess's mansion, they would take the opportunity to have a good look. According to Diwu Taiqing, the 18th scholar was in very good condition, and the other plants in the capital city could not be compared with it. Diwu Taiqing's endless description of other plants tickled their hearts. Then they saw that Luo Peishan was so complacent that they just wanted to beat him up. What was there to be complacent about? Before his granddaughter moved to the capital city, he had no chance to show off in front of them. How could an old man like him have the nerve to be complacent because of his granddaughter? Luo Shangshu, Lord Luo, patted his chest and told them that he was complacent. What? As Diwu Taiqing said before, the girl's surname was Luo, and she belonged to his family. Other families could not have her even if they wanted her. Luo Shangshu said that he was in a very good mood. With his hands clasped behind his back, he hummed a tune and was about to go crazy. Today, he finally vented his anger. In the past, it was he who coveted their things. Now, in the future, humph, 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 except for Luo Peishan, Elder Jiang was probably the only one who was in a good mood. Compared with his usual solemn and reserved manner, he was now smiling and a little eager. He kept humming, which was similar to Lord Luo's. If it were not for the fact that this was Great Elder Princess's birthday banquet, he might have gone back to his mansion and concentrated on studying his music score. However, it seemed that he would not stay after the banquet. The other people did not have any conflict of interest with him, so it did not matter. Jingwan did not see it either. If she saw it, she would probably laugh. These old officials were really cute. The matter had been completely settled. Although Sun Yijia tried her best to endure it, how could Jingwan, who was walking beside her, not feel her uncontrollable excitement? If it was said that these unmarried girls were able to fulfill their wishes in marriage, there was probably nothing that was more worth being happy about. Sister Jia, are you very happy? Jingwan leaned close to her ear and whispered with a smile. How could Sun Yijia not know that she was being teased? What are you talking about? Then you are not happy. You are not willing to marry my brother. Jingwan deliberately raised her eyebrows. Sun Yijia was embarrassed and anxious. She was very happy, but how could she say it out loud? However, if she did not say it out loud, she was worried that Jingwan would misunderstand that she disliked her brother. For a moment, she was so anxious that her face turned red. If it were not for the veil covering her nose, she would have attracted everyone's attention at this time. Jingwan covered her mouth and laughed so hard that her shoulders shook. If it were not for the fact that this was not the right place, she would definitely have laughed out loud. How could Sun Yijia not know that she was being teased again? For a moment, she was embarrassed and angry, but she was not really angry. Did this mean that Sister Wan really did not mind that she was her sister-in-law? She had already sensed it before, but she did not dare to confirm it. She encouraged herself in her heart. Sister Wan doesn't mind. Jingwan restrained her smile and stopped teasing her. Jokes should stop. Even if they were good friends, it was not good to go overboard. Why would I mind? Do I mind Sister Jia's face? Sun Yijia naturally knew that Sister Wan did not care about her face the most. For a moment, her eyes could not help but feel a little bitter. Don't cry. If you cry now, who knows what other people will say. Sun Yijia sniffled and made herself return to normal. Sigh, you are crying more and more. What should I do? Forget it, I'll leave it to third brother to coax her slowly in the future. Don't you know how to control your mouth? Sometimes, you are as annoying as someone. Jingwan did not hear the latter part of the sentence clearly. Sister Jia, what are you muttering about? Nothing. Looking at the harmonious atmosphere, the smile from the bottom of her heart was particularly dazzling. At the banquet, Sun Yijia gave up her original seat and sat at the same table with Jingwan. Anyway, there were not enough people, so no one said anything. It was Great Elder Princess's birthday banquet, needless to say, there were so many dishes on the table. However, the hot dishes had long become cold dishes. Even if they were edible, these ladies in the boudoir were very reserved. Jingwan had to pretend to be polite. Therefore, no matter what kind of banquet it was, she hated it most now. It was best to eat in her own courtyard. This meal had taken more than an hour, and the male guests had probably spent even more time on it. As expected, not long after the banquet was taken away, some old people or people who had important things to do asked to leave. At this time, generally, no one would ask them to stay. Madame Luo was one of them. She had both reasons. Great Elder Princess naturally knew about the Luo Jingying. She couldn't help sighing. Why was there such a big gap between sisters in the same mansion? Great Elder Princess, I'm sorry to trouble you. Madame Luo apologized. Madame Luo, you are treating me as an outsider. Apart from other things, I like your third miss very much. If it weren't for, I would like to adopt her as my daughter. Madame Luo naturally knew Great Elder Princess's scruples. It was one thing to like her, but if she adopted her as her daughter, she would be directly related to her. Was she trying to make friends with court officials or something else? Lu Qingdi should have an idea. Great Elder Princess could be valued by Lu Qingdi for so many years because she knew how to restrain herself. Therefore, in order to maintain their friendship for a long time, she also needed to do her best to maintain it. It's this girl's honor to be favored by Great Elder Princess. Jingwan stood aside quietly and listened to them talk. Then, under the cover of Great Elder Princess, Luo Jingying was sent to the carriage. Previously, only her hands were tied, but now her whole body was tied up and her mouth was gagged tightly in order to prevent her from making trouble. When they returned to the Luo family and saw Luo Jingying being carried out, the Luo family knew that something had happened. It should be known that today, except for Madame Wang, the eldest daughter-in-law, the other 3 daughters-in-law were not allowed to go. And Luo Peishan only brought his eldest son and several grandchildren. At this moment, they all came out to greet them. The 4th daughter-in-law, Madame Wu, might feel a little regretful, but she would not think too much about it. The 2nd daughter-in-law, Madame Zhang, needless to say, did not like these occasions very much. Only the 3rd daughter-in-law, Madame Lu, did not say anything no matter how much she thought about it. Madame Luo even ignored her. Seeing her daughter's appearance at this moment, Madame Lu knew that her daughter had obviously suffered a great crime, but she was tied up like this. It was obvious that she had done something wrong. Madame Lu was angry and resentful. She thought that it was most likely that her daughter had done something stupid again. She did not dare to say anything. Even if Luo Jingying groaned at her, she could only pretend not to hear it. Seeing Luo Jingying's appearance, Luo Rongbing was also very angry. Although some of his anger was directed at Luo Jingying, most of it was directed at Madame Luo. Madame Luo was the bargaining chip of his glorious career, but now she was like this. But he did not dare to show any expression. He did not know that the thing between him and Prince Rui, which he thought others did not know, had already been revealed by Old Master Yu Yao. The other people did not have any reaction. They were not interested at all. Throw Luo Jingying into the small Buddha hall and untie her. If she dares to make trouble, slap her directly. Beat her until she doesn't dare to make trouble, Madame Luo said coldly. Without even looking at Luo Jingying, Madame Luo attacked her wet nurse and maidservant. Of course, this was to help Jingwan. In Madame Luo's view, these 3 people were not only failing to protect their master, but also knew that their master was wrong, but they did not stop her, which was a big mistake. If it were up to her, they should be severely punished. Come with me. Wan, go do your own thing. Madame Luo went back to the main courtyard and changed into some casual clothes. During this time, they knew what Luo Jingying had done in Great Elder Princess's mansion. Madame Lu's face was expressionless. No one knew what she was thinking. Madame Zhang was very angry. Even though she was like this, she still pulled a long face in front of Madame Lu. As for Luo Rongbing's power and influence, Luo Rongyuan originally disliked it. Now that his daughter was schemed against by his daughter, he did not have any good attitude toward his 3rd brother. In my opinion, 3rd young lady is very capable. No matter what evil people do to her, she is not affected at all. Instead, she is getting better and better. But she is also a kind person, so naturally, she will be rewarded. Unlike some people who think about jealousy, hatred, and scheming all day long, they are full of evil tricks. Good will be rewarded with good, and evil will be punished with evil, Madame Wu said with a smile while pulling her handkerchief. Well, you are good at talking. I called you here because there is a happy event, Madame Luo told them about Sun Yijia and Luo Jingbua. The wedding date is really too tight. Although Jingming is the elder brother, he can only postpone it for the time being. Second daughter-in-law, hurry up and prepare what you need to prepare. As for other things, I will arrange 2 people for you. Anyway, you have already prepared a courtyard for the wedding room. Second daughter-in-law, hurry up and send someone to find a craftsman to paint it. As for the matchmaker, your father and I will hire someone. In addition, although this Sun family's girl's face was hurt, I can't deny that she's a good girl. After she marries into the family, I don't want people to gossip and gossip. I'll leave it at that for today. If I hear something bad, don't say that this old woman doesn't have a merciful heart. You 2 branches can see if there is anything you can help with. If you don't want to help, just stay here. Don't come out and make people feel bad. It was obvious who the last sentence was meant for. Even with Madame Lu's shrewdness, she couldn't help but change her expression. Luo Rongping's face was also very gloomy. Luo Jingying's matter was handled by Madame Luo herself. She didn't blame them as parents, so they didn't dare to mention it. Mother, don't worry. Daughter-in-law is very idle. If you and second sister-in-law need anything, just say it. If you don't have enough people, just tell the people in the 4th branch. Except for Master who is busy with the imperial examination, you can order the others. Madame Wu said very straightforwardly. Luo Rongwei also apologized to Luo Rongyan. Mother, please tell us. Madame Lu also hurriedly said. No matter what she thought, as long as she was the daughter-in-law of the Luo family, she had to listen to her mother-in-law. Last time, because of the matter with Huan Nyang, she had threatened her. If she dared to do it again, Madame Luo would definitely divorce her immediately. Luo Rongping didn't say anything. Okay, hurry up and do your work. Almost all the people in the Luo family were busy. They had no choice. There were less than 20 days left. On the other side, Jingwan asked people to carry the 18 scholars into the carriage. In addition, she was ready to take 2 self-made beauty charts. However, when she saw Luo Jingbua's unfinished painting, she changed her mind. Sister Jia's disfigurement aside, the Luo family in Ding General Manor were far inferior in status. Luo Rongyan was only a person with an idle position. Luo Jingbua was far from being the son-in-law of Ding General Manor. However, Jingwan also wanted to let the world know that her brother was not a good-for-nothing. He had the capital to amaze everyone. Therefore, she took a few pots of well-raised flowers and trees. Although they were not precious, in Jingwan's opinion, they had enough ornamental value as long as they were well raised. When Jingwan returned to Great Elder Princess's mansion, a few people had been waiting there anxiously. The bustle by the lake didn't arouse their interest at all. Although Pavilion Elder Jiang was absent, there were more flower lovers, such as Minister Zhong of the Ministry of Works. Before Jingwan called people, Prince Consort Jiang had sent people to carry the 18 scholars down. It was one thing to hear about it, but another thing to see it. Even Luo Peishan, who could see it every other day at most, couldn't help but come over at this moment. It's more than good. It's simply too good. Pavilion Elder Wan also showed some excitement and wanted to take it home. Others also praised it. The 18 scholars' flowers had been blooming one after another. Many of them had been fully bloomed, and some were half-bloom. There were also many buds. Those snow-white and smooth petals, layer upon layer, were unbelievably beautiful. Girl, you really gave it away. Diwu Taiqing didn't give up and asked. It's a lot. It's my compensation to Wengzhu Yuyao. Jingwan said with a smile. Prince Consort Jiang noticed Wu Taiqing's sinister intention, so he waved his hand and asked people to carry it into the mansion quickly. As for the few pots that Jingwan added, although they were far less popular than the 18 scholars, their quality was really outstanding and also moved people's hearts. Prince Consort Jiang wanted to take them all, but unfortunately, they had already been divided up by these few people. It was still not enough, and they almost fought over it. Little girl, it seems that you're really good at raising flowers. What's your experience? Can you tell us, old guys? The Grand Secretary smiled very kindly. The others scolded him in their hearts. What a dirty old man, but they pricked up their ears. I can't say that I have any experience, but my daughter has been making a collection of her own methods. It's just that I happened to meet my brother's great joy. After this period of time, the collection of beauties will be completed. If you don't mind, my daughter will ask my grandfather to bring a copy to you. Luo Peishan's hand that was stroking his beard paused. There was a ready-made collection of beauties at home, but she didn't take it out now. It seemed that his granddaughter had other intentions. Naturally, he couldn't tear down his good granddaughter's stage. Fortunately, the collection of beauties in his hands wasn't seen by Wu Taiqing, that old bastard. Otherwise, at least a few of them would be lost. Jingwan's idea was naturally not bad. At this time, it was really the one who reached first. The things that Jingwan took out already proved this point. Little girl, it said that your pot of tricolored peony is about to bloom, right? Yes, it should open in about a month's time. When the time comes, bring it out and let us old guys see it. Okay, when it blossoms, I'll ask my grandfather to bring it out for you all to appreciate. In this official's opinion, it's better for us to visit Lord Luo together when the time comes. Such a precious flower, if it were to be moved here and there, it would be enough to make people feel distressed. They could also justifiably look at other treasures. It was because they saw these 18 scholars that they were more and more moved. Even if they couldn't take it for themselves, they had to reward it well. That's reasonable. Except for Luo Peishan, everyone nodded in agreement. How could Luo Peishan not know what these people were planning? He was so angry that his nose almost crooked. However, this group of people united was not something that he could stop alone. Jingwan looked at them and was amused. Little girl, you go play. You don't have to accompany us. Deference is no substitute for obedience. I'll take my leave. After Jingwan left, this group of people finally revealed their true colors. In order to get closer to admire the flowers, they directly hit each other. They didn't care if your position was high or low, or if your identity was noble or important, they didn't care about your feelings. However, although they were pushing and shoving at the side, they didn't even touch the leaves of 18 scholars. It was still blooming happily. Seeing Jingwan appear, Great Elder Princess directly asked someone to bring her an embroidered stool and let her sit beside her. Has the 18 scholars moved here? Yes, they have moved here. I also want to have a look, but there must be a lot of people around it now. Well, the officials in the capital city love flowers and trees, which surprised me a little. There's nothing to be surprised about. The people in the capital just gather together, so there are more of them. The people you met today are all people who really love flowers and cherish them. There are also a lot of people who pretend to be cultured. That's a lot of them. I've learned a lot. Thinking about it, she found that it was indeed so. Well, in such a short time, 3 of the rewards have been given out. In the morning, only Sun Yilin took one of the rewards, and her share was not counted. Those 3 brats were lucky. They all drew what they were best at. In addition, they did their best for this reward. Their performance was very outstanding. Naturally, the reward was taken away. Look at this one. I'm afraid he can also take away another one. Jing Wan looked carefully at the flower terrace. It was a young man with delicate features. He had changed into women's clothing and no one would be able to tell that he was a man. Now, he was painting and was very focused on it. The child of Marquis Pingshi's mansion, born of a concubine, is not very popular. But his painting is extremely brilliant. Even our famous child Lin can't compare with him. However, even if he gets the reward, I'm afraid he can't keep it. Jing Wan nodded. Although the Marquis Pingshi's mansion could benefit their descendants, it was very limited. They only had so many descendants, and they couldn't participate in the imperial examination. These people were divided into the son of a concubine and the son of a concubine. There were also those who were favored and those who were not. The outstanding son of a concubine who was not favored, the son of a concubine who was unworthy of being a stepping stone for the son of a concubine who was favored could be found everywhere. This was normal. Even if one knew about it, there was nothing one could do, unless one had the ability to reach out and help. Li Hongyuan also had a deep impression of this person. After Wan Wan's fine brushwork painting was introduced, he was in the first batch to learn it. At the same time, he did not give up on freehand brushwork painting. At the age of 30, he became a master of both fine brushwork and freehand brushwork. His reputation was well known all over the world. It was obvious how talented he was in painting. With this opportunity, he might be able to avoid 10 years of torture, but he might not be able to make such great achievements. After all, he was a great talent in the Qi Yuan dynasty. Li Hongyuan didn't want to ruin him, so he would not do anything. If he could keep the reward, it would be his ability and his turning point. If he couldn't keep the reward, he was destined to go on the old road. The painting was completed. It was a landscape painting, which was magnificent and did not match his shy character at all. Although his painting skills were still lacking, it was very clever and might be extraordinary in the future. As Great Elder Princess said, he did take the 6th reward. After this young man got the reward, he went back and gave the purse to his father, Marquis Pingshi, without saying anything. Marquis Pingshi just said indifferently, "Well done," and put away the purse. He didn't even pretend to be angry. Others saw this but didn't say anything. After all, this was his family's business. If they said anything more, the young master might be punished when he went back. Perhaps all the good luck was in the afternoon. After that, every 2 or 3 people would take a purse. Of course, there were also some people who were punished. For example, it was offensive to ask another person to drink a jar of wine. However, if this jar of wine was given to a drunkard, it was a different story. There was good wine in Great Elder Princess's mansion. Some people walked in circles to cut 10 fruits, and that person almost cut his hand. Another person, like Li Hongyuan, drew the reward to wear women's clothes. However, he was tall and strong, with dark skin and a beard when he was in his teens. After wearing women's clothes, all the people present laughed. There was only the last reward left. However, this reward was not taken away by someone with talent. It was the eldest daughter of Great Elder Princess who knelt down and begged Great Elder Princess to leave in front of everyone. This change could be said to be beyond everyone's expectation. Great Elder Princess was so angry that she directly smashed the purse on her eldest daughter's face. "Get out of here. You are not allowed to come to Great Elder Princess's mansion in the future." Then she flicked her sleeves and left. As for the one who received the pouch, not only did she not look for her mother who was quite angry, she even put the pouch away with a smile on her face. She seemed to be not ashamed of her actions, but proud of it. Jingwan knew that there were always some stupid people in the world. Obviously, the eldest daughter of Great Elder Princess was one of them. She didn't think that if Luqingdi knew how she got the purse in the end, what good would the person who took the purse to ask for the reward from Luqingdi get? It was supposed to be a happy thing, but it ended in such a disappointing way. Everyone was also tactful, so they all said their goodbyes one after another. Prince Consort Jiang, who was watching the flowers over there, had to come out to help them see the guests off. However, he was really worried. What if his treasure was taken away by others? And the culprit who caused all this naturally didn't make Prince Consort Jiang feel good. However, Great Elder Princess refused to come forward, so she had to let her daughters-in-law come forward. These daughters-in-law didn't want to be too involved with the court officials, so they didn't have a good family background. In this way, a big problem was exposed. They were not presentable because Great Elder Princess didn't like them. This was also the reason why Jingwan hadn't seen or heard of them for almost a whole day. Perhaps they had seen them at some time, but their presence was too weak and they were ignored. In the face of a noble lady, they were a little timid. Knowing the situation of Great Elder Princess's mansion, they naturally didn't care about it and left respectively. On the carriage back to the city, Jingwan's eyes fell on her sister, Luo Jingyu. Although this little girl was occasionally sharp, most of the time, she was still a little dull and timid. Seeing Great Elder Princess's daughters-in-law, Jingwan felt that she couldn't let her grow up like this. Otherwise, when she married into her husband's family in the future, she would not only be disliked but also be wronged and suffered losses like those daughters-in-law. When Sister Jia married into the family, she would let her take good care of her sister. As the eldest sister-in-law, wasn't it her duty to teach her sister-in-law? Besides, if she was not free, didn't she have an etiquette instructor by her side? She could just borrow her. Nanny Gong. Nanny Gong was fine. Except for Jingwan, she didn't care about anyone else. When Jingwan left home before, the Luo mansion was still quiet. Why did it become so lively after she came back? One by one, they walked with the wind as if there were suddenly several times more people. Only then did Jingwan realize that her brother was really going to marry a wife, and the wife was her best friend. As the party concerned, she didn't have much to do. Therefore, Jingwan went to her brother without hesitation and dragged him over in a somewhat aggressive manner. The brothers who were teasing her were all startled by Jingwan. What happened to the third sister? Could it be that third brother had provoked her? After a few steps, she ran into Luo Peishan, her father, and her uncle. What's the matter? Grandfather, I have something to do with my third brother. By the way, and this. Jingwan took out the purse and stuffed it into Luo Peishan's hand. Grandfather, you can deal with it. I'm leaving. She dragged Luo Jingbua behind her. It was the first time that he saw Jingwan in such a hurry. What's the matter? The group of brothers expressed that they did not know. Luo Jingbua, who was also baffled, was taken directly to the study of the begonia house. Hurry up. Jingwan pointed to his painting of birds looking up to the phoenix. Little sister, do you want to draw now? Everyone is busy. Isn't that bad? Then, third brother, don't you want to take out something of your own when you give Sister Jia the betrothal gifts? Duke Ding's mansion is a prestigious family. Although our family is not bad, we are far from their family. Ordinary betrothal gifts can't be outstanding, so naturally, we have to take out something special. You also want to make Sister Jia proud, don't you? How could Luo Jingbua not understand his little sister's meaning? Little sister, are you saying that we should use this painting as a betrothal gift? To be honest, this proposal also made him very excited. The fame and benefits brought by the first fine brushwork in the world, if it was used as a betrothal gift, to a certain extent, it was enough to become the rarest, most special, and most precious betrothal gift. That's it. So, are you going to draw or not? Draw, draw, draw. Luo Jingbua immediately rolled up his sleeves. Jingwan's lips curled up, and then she began to mix the colors for him. Nanny Gong and Qing Zhu were waiting on the side, passing things to her and helping her. The other maids and older women were basically sent to help by Jingwan. Granny Gong looked at the young lady who was wholeheartedly devoted to her elder brother. If you treated her sincerely, she would treat you wholeheartedly as well. For a moment, a myriad of thoughts ran through her mind. However, after 2 hours, Granny Gong's expression became a little strange. It was because her miss had taken advantage of the time when third young master was resting and drinking water to lecture him non-stop. The content of her lecture was about how good Sister Jia was and how he should treat her in the future. To put it more bluntly, she said that he could only see her in his eyes, that he could only have her in his heart, and that he could only sleep with her in his bed. Even Nanny Gong, who had always been upright and serious, had her face turn into a color palette after hearing her words. Young lady, if you want to find your husband according to what you said, you might as well spend the rest of your life in seclusion. However, when she thought of a certain king of hell who was eyeing her covetously, Granny Gong suddenly wanted to know if he could do what the young lady said. If he could do this for the young lady, then Granny Gong could even let bygones be bygones. When he came to find the young lady again, she could even open the door wide for him. A man who could spoil a woman to such an extent, no matter how bad he was in other aspects, couldn't be faulted in this aspect. Of course, to those old pedantic people, this was improper and lacking in moral integrity. Jingwan had merely taken the modern version of 3 obeys and 4 gets. She had removed the things that absolutely could not exist here and mixed in some other things. Some things might sound unbelievable and out of the ordinary, but if one were to examine it carefully, they would not be able to find anything wrong with it. In this aspect, Luo Jingbo was actually very naive. He basically didn't come into contact with these things. Usually, Luo Rongyan was also very derelict in not telling him these things. It was precisely because of this that it was convenient for Jingwan to brainwash him. His head was still dizzy, so Jingwan took him away to continue painting. Since it was brainwashing, naturally, it couldn't be done just once. In this way, Luo Jingbo was repeatedly tortured both physically and mentally by Jingwan. When Luo Jingbo left, he was a little dispirited. Everyone who saw him looked at each other in dismay. What's wrong? It wasn't good to ask a servant, but as the father, naturally, wouldn't be polite. Fortunately, Luo Jingbo also knew that his younger sister's words were a little shocking, so he didn't directly say it out loud. It's nothing. It's just that your son doesn't have anything good to show, so I have to prepare some special betrothal gifts. It's a little tiring. Luo Rongyan couldn't help but laugh. You little brat, you're already so attentive even after marrying into the family. She's my future wife. We're going to spend the rest of our lives together. Shouldn't I be attentive to her? Luo Jingbo inexplicably asked back. Luo Rongyan didn't expect that there would be a day when he would be choked by his son. Therefore, Jingwan's brainwashing was a little effective. At least there was one sentence that he completely remembered. That's the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Parents have their own lives. They will gradually grow old and leave this world. Children will gradually grow up, or marry, and then have children. Only husband and wife will be together for the longest time. After Luo Jingbo left, Mama Gong looked at Jingwan and hesitated to speak. I know what Mama Gong wants to say. A couple for the rest of their lives. He only has me in his heart, and I always think of him in my heart. I don't have any extravagant hopes for this kind of life. I won't live according to this kind of standards, and I won't go down a dead end. I just think that if there's such a couple by my side, I can live such a life with no regrets. In fact, Mama Gong had long seen that her young lady was full of expectations and longing for other people's lives, but she didn't have high expectations for herself. In this regard, she always maintained a skeptical, cautious, and rational attitude. Mama Gong felt sorry for her. Young lady, don't think like that. You'll definitely be able to live such a life. Jingwan smiled and didn't say anything. Meanwhile, Li Hongyuan received a message from Mama Gong. It turns out that Wan Wan isn't as simple as a vinegar jar. She's also very greedy. However, what's wrong with living according to your wishes? When the Luo family was extremely busy, there were two things worth mentioning. Ruan Ruizhong brought a pot of flowers back and carefully took care of it. Ruan Fangfei felt strange, so she asked about it. After learning about its origin, it was the first time she heard her father praise another young lady. It let her taste the feeling of hearing other people's children. She really wanted to chop her up and then watch wild dogs swallow her up bite by bite. She stared at the flower with a faint expression. Lowly things would always be lowly. How could they be worthy of careful care? When the Grand Secretary was not around, a cup of hot water was poured from the root. It would probably die tomorrow morning. On the other hand, there was the matter of Sun Yijia's dowry. The status of the people she married was very different. Someone wanted to reduce her dowry, not by a few percent, but by only 10%. Even if it's only 10%, it's still much more than an ordinary girl's dowry. Sun Yibin said so. In his opinion, everything in Duke Ding's mansion belonged to him. It was comparable to God's grace to give his useless sister 10% of her dowry. Sun Yilin looked at him coldly, and Duchess Ding directly threw the teacup at him. If he hadn't dodged quickly, it would have smashed a hole in his head. Sun Yibin, let me tell you. If you dare to touch the dowry I prepared for Sun Yijia, I will expose all the disgusting things you have done. Don't tell me that we can't wash our dirty linen in public. With such an unfilial son like you, I don't care about my reputation. I'd like to see how you can be conferred the title of heir of Duke Ding's mansion when the time comes. Sun Yibin's face was livid, but this was indeed his weakness. He thought that with the previous preparations, as long as he got the memorial from his father to confer him the title of heir of Duke Ding's mansion, he would be able to become the heir of Duke Ding's mansion and take charge of it legitimately. However, he didn't expect that after the memorial was handed in, there was no reply at all. Those who patted their chests and promised to seize power for him all shrank back. Only then did he realize that it was too early for him to fall out with his family. Now he had to be cautious. He left in a huff. When he walked to the door, he looked back and looked at Sun Yilin. I underestimated you, but let's wait and see. Humph, he thought that Sun Yilin was the one who played tricks and prevented Lu Qingdi from conferring the memorial. Sun Yilin ignored him. He would let his good brother know that the real show was yet to come. Everything he did would become more and more difficult, and more people would turn their backs on him. In fact, some of Sun Yijia's dowry should be reduced. After all, some things could be brought into the royal family, but were not suitable for the courtiers. There were also some rare treasures that had been handed down from their ancestors. They were originally forced to compensate Li Hongyuan, so they naturally couldn't take them away now. However, the rest of the dowry was enough for the daughter of Duke Ding's mansion's legal wife. In the backyard of Duke Ding's mansion, countless people tore their handkerchiefs and smashed a house full of things. A disfigured and ugly woman was married to such a person with no family background, no status, and no talent. How could she get such a heavy dowry? How could she? What was even more infuriating was that even Duke Ding didn't say anything. A few days later, Duke Ding's mansion and the royal family made the final arrangements. Then, they could go through the proper etiquette with the Luo family. Because it was Duke Ding's mansion, even if the Luo family tried their best to prepare the best, it was inevitable that they would be criticized. The Luo family had a clear conscience, and Sun Yijia wouldn't care. After exchanging updates and matching their horoscopes, it was a true match made in heaven. As the time was getting closer and closer, the imperial examination in spring was in 3 or 4 days. The betrothal gifts with Duke Ding's mansion were set on the first day of the imperial examination. Luo Jingbue invited his grandfather and father to his sister's begonia elegant residence. These days, except for when he was needed, such as when he was trying on clothes, he was completely immersed in the begonia elegant residence. He only knew that he was preparing a special betrothal gift, but he didn't know what he was doing. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. When Luo Peishan and Luo Rongyan saw the completed painting, they were stunned. They had been nagging him all day long to learn fine brushwork. Some of his previous works were not as good as Jingwan's, so they were especially disdainful of them. However, this masterpiece was not inferior to Jingwan's at all. Because it was many times bigger, the difficulty increased, and it added to the grandeur. Furthermore, he had to pay more attention to the details, which made it seem better. Luo Peishan slapped Luo Jingbue on the shoulder. "Good boy, very good, very good." Luo Jingbue didn't dare to take the credit alone. "Most of the colors were made by my sister. Without her, it would be much inferior. It's good that you know it, so you still have to continue to study hard." "Yes, grandfather, I will." "Are you going to use this painting as a betrothal gift?" Luo Rongyan said with some disapproval. "Jingbue, do you know its real value? It's the first painting of fine brushwork. No matter how many paintings surpass it in later generations, its historical significance will never surpass it. If it is detained by Duke Ding's mansion and is not brought back by my daughter-in-law as a dowry, won't it? Jingbue, don't you always care about these things? Why are you so Philistine now? If Duke Ding's mansion dares to detain it, do they want to be scolded to death by all the scholars in the world? Besides, this fame and fortune really belong to Mengya. She doesn't care, so why are you shouting? Girl, you have this idea on Great Elder Princess's birthday, right?" Jingwan nodded. "I just want to let the world know that it's not a loss for my brother to marry the best girl in the world." All right. You're giving face to your brother and also to that girl from the Sun family. So, boy, you must be good to your sister, do you understand? No other sister will be so painstaking for her brother. Grandfather, my brother will remember it in his heart and won't forget it. I ask you to come with my father because I want you to help me frame it. Because it won't be leaked in advance, I have to trouble you. Girl, you don't have to be so polite to your family. In the blink of an eye, it was the day before the imperial examination in spring. The Luo family invited 4 people from Quanfu as matchmakers and Luo Jingbue, the bridegroom, to Duke Ding's mansion with the betrothal money, cash gifts, and betrothal gifts. It must be said that there were not only people in Duke Ding's mansion waiting to accept the engagement, but also people from the Sun family, as well as many relatives and friends. How many of them came with sincerity and how many of them came to see a joke? In fact, everyone was well aware of it. It was just that some words were too harsh, and Duchess Ding's face almost couldn't hold it. When the people of the Luo family arrived, they didn't see anything special except for some ridicule and sarcasm. In fact, our sister Jia grew up in a nest of wealth. I don't know what kind of hard life she will live in the future. The betrothal money is quite a lot. It's 100,000 taels. Someone even ignored Duchess Ding's face and counted the gift list with trembling hands. What is all birds pay homage to the phoenix? And it's a single one. What's going on? Why don't we take it out and have a look? The name sounds quite strange. In fact, Sunny Jia was in the back hall. A group of sisters in the mansion, as well as the older sisters, outside, were also eccentric. They said that if she brought so much dowry over, would she have to support the whole Luo family in the future? After all, Sister Jia is disfigured. If she doesn't bring more dowry, how can she establish herself? Sunny Jia didn't care at all. But when she heard all birds pay homage to the phoenix on the gift list, she was stunned. His painting was completed. He even brought betrothal gifts. How could Sun Yijia not know the value of that painting? He took it out today as a betrothal gift. He wanted to give her half of all the fame and glory. Sun Yijia couldn't stop crying. How many times had she been a good person to be treated like this in this life? When the crowd saw Sun Yijia crying, they couldn't say anything. However, some people curled their lips. What's the use of crying now? You'll have to cry in the future. Outside, someone glanced at the most special long brocade box and reached out to take it. A few full fortune madams, who were indifferent before, reached out to stop them. This thing is precious. You'd better not touch it. If it's damaged, none of you can afford to pay for it. Speaking of which, as the full fortune madams invited by the Luo family, they weren't too happy at first because they had already expected what would happen. However, this most important betrothal gift gave them enough confidence. The more these people said now, the more painful it would be for them to be slapped in the face later. Madam, this thing is indeed precious. It's one of a kind in the world. If it's damaged, even if an identical copy is made, its value won't be as good as 1,000th of it. The matchmaker stroked the brocade box and chuckled. Since they had already made it so clear, naturally, no one would be tactful enough to force them to take it. However, even Duchess Ding's curiosity was aroused. However, if the Luo family could really take out such a good thing, it would be good to show it to these people. Thus, she smiled and said, "Why don't we let everyone see it?" The matchmaker nodded, opened the brocade box, and took out the painting. "I thought it was something special. What's so rare about a painting of 100 birds paying homage to a phoenix? It's one of a kind in the world." What a joke. Duchess Ding was also greatly disappointed. An ordinary painting of 100 birds paying homage to a phoenix is naturally not rare. The third young master of the Luo family is not famous. He's just a graduate. There's nothing particularly outstanding about him. However, he's someone who doesn't take the ordinary path. He's ambitious. He dares to think and dare to do, so he can do what others can't. With the help of another madam, the entire painting was unfolded. Everyone who didn't take it seriously shut their mouths completely. Duchess Ding covered her mouth in disbelief. What kind of painting technique is this? It's so vivid, as if it's real. It's Brother Bo's self-created Gongbi painting technique. After a lot of practice, he completed this masterpiece. Our Brother Bo doesn't think he has anything to show. He only has this painting that hasn't been seen yet. He also hopes to use this painting to express his feelings for the girl in your family, the matchmaker said with a faint smile. Another madam gently stroked the painting. These people shut up, but they still felt that it wasn't satisfying enough. I don't know if this is one of a kind. Is the first masterpiece of Gongbi painting precious enough? If it's damaged, can you afford to pay for it? None of these people were really uneducated. Whether something was precious or not, they would more or less know. They really couldn't afford to pay for this painting, so they could only twitch the corners of their mouths and say nothing. Good. Duchess Ding said a series of good words. This painting alone had earned her back all her face. At this moment, she was very satisfied with Luo Jingbua. Tomorrow, no, there was no need to wait until tomorrow. In less than 2 hours, this son-in-law would be famous in the capital and even overshadow his son. After all, no matter how powerful his son was, he hadn't created a new way of painting. Then, his name would gradually spread all over the world. Everyone who began to learn Gongbi painting would treat him as their master. He would become the founder of a generation. If his daughter married such a person, even if she lived in a thatched hut, she would only be said to be noble and pure. Luo Jinghua was actually very embarrassed at this moment. This was all his little sister's glory, and he had taken it all. Before the painting was put away, some male guests came over after hearing about it. After seeing it, they all praised it. Sun Yilin looked at the painting and sighed with emotion. He didn't expect this brother-in-law to be so capable. I'm relieved to leave my little sister to you. Brother-in-law, don't worry. I will definitely treat your little sister well. If I don't treat her well, my little sister will tear me apart alive. Thinking of his little sister's various teachings and threats to him these days, he couldn't wait to hold Sun Yijia in the palm of his hand. Sun Yilin couldn't help but laugh. Miss Luo was really good to his little sister. Although his little sister had gone through ups and downs, it was worth it to finally get this marriage. It was all worth it. Chapter 104. Duchess Ding, who was full of confidence, looked different. Her back was straight, her face was full of glory, and she was in high spirits. Naturally, she became more attentive to the people from the Luo family. She even specially told her son not to neglect her son-in-law. Although Duchess Ding's change seemed snobbish, at least 9 out of 10 people were like this. Naturally, you couldn't say anything about her. Moreover, today was a happy day, so Sun Yilin just smiled. The 100 birds worshipping the phoenix painting was appreciated by the male guests, and most people were not allowed to touch it at all. If Duchess Ding was happy, how could Duke Ding not be happy? His son-in-law had such a long face. He responded to other people's compliments, real or fake, with a smile on his face. At this time, he naturally didn't bother to care about what they thought. When Sun Yilin came over with Luo Jinghua, a group of people surrounded them. Compliments such as young talent and the younger generation will surpass us in time were thrown at Luo Jinghua as if they didn't cost money. Duke Dinghua looked on coldly. He could see that some people were deliberately trying to put his son-in-law on a pedestal. Although it was not obvious now, it was inevitable that young people would become arrogant after hearing too many compliments. Gradually, their arrogance might rise to the sky and they would become arrogant. Then, no matter how famous they were at the beginning, they might be stigmatized by then. Their intentions were really vicious. Most of these people were just related by marriage. Even if they were from the same family, they couldn't be asked to be loyal to their own family, not to mention that now there was an unfilial son who was bent on taking power from him. Naturally, there were also many people who were loyal to the empress. Like Li Hongyi, they also included the Luo family in the scope of their faction. Luo Jingbua's current momentum was particularly favorable to them. Seeing these people with ulterior motives, they couldn't help but frown. Therefore, they poured cold water on those who were full of praise at the right time, telling Luo Jinghua not to be complacent and to continue to work hard. Luo Jinghua only smiled and responded to the compliments with a few words. He didn't take them seriously, but he humbly and respectfully accepted the words that pointed out his shortcomings. His attitude made Duke Dinghua and the others feel that their worries were in vain. Their evaluation of Luo Jinghua in their hearts became higher and higher. Good, good. He is neither arrogant nor impetuous. With such a calm temperament, he is enough to take on great responsibilities. If Luo Jinghua was a thick-skinned person, he would probably be cocky right now. Unfortunately, he wasn't. And if he was, this honor wouldn't have fallen on his head in the first place. Knowing that all this actually belonged to his little sister, he couldn't be proud. The more others said good things about him, the more guilty he felt. The higher others praised him, the more humble he felt. If someone really poured cold water on him, he would be eager to pour more cold water on him. For others, it was a good job, but for him, it was a hard job. However, his little sister was wholeheartedly doing it for him and his future wife. Therefore, even if he felt uncomfortable, he had to hold on. Therefore, on one hand, he was happy, on the other hand, he was distressed. Sun Yilin, who had been overshadowed by his brother-in-law, looked at him with a smile. In his opinion, he was worthy of being Miss Luo's brother. Although he was not as calm as Miss Luo, his temperament was really rare. He looked at the painting. The more he looked at it, the more exquisite he felt it was, especially the color mix. He believed that today's sacred master might not be able to reach this level. It not only required patience, but also extraordinary care. Thinking of this, Sun Yilin's face suddenly had a subtle expression. His brother-in-law was free and easy, not bothering about trifles, or even careless. He might be patient, but how come he couldn't see his care? He shook his head. As the saying goes, you can't judge a book by its cover. Maybe he was the kind of person who was especially careful in a certain aspect. Yilin, looking at this 100 birds worshipping the phoenix painting, you have a strange expression and you're shaking your head. Why, do you have any thoughts? Sun Yilin suddenly opened his mouth and said. Because these words were too sudden and his voice was not low, it naturally attracted the attention of the surrounding people. Could it be that this young Master Lin was feeling uncomfortable? One had to know that this 100 birds worshipping the phoenix painting was the first meticulous brush painting to be released to the world. Even if it was a painting expert, they would at most comment on some of the basic painting techniques. More than that, they really couldn't say. If you don't know or have never come into contact with something, what right do you have to comment on it? Sun Yilin looked at Sun Yilin indifferently. Sun Yilin was really thinking of slandering him all the time. Big brother, you're thinking too much. I'm just thinking that this is a betrothal gift for my younger sister. She hasn't even had time to take a look at it. It was not a problem to say that this was a betrothal gift for the bride's family. It was also possible to say that it was a betrothal gift for the bride's family. It was not that no one had embezzled all the betrothal gifts given by the bride's family and used it for other purposes. However, that was only because the bride's family was really poor or a group of shameless people. But as long as the family had some dignity, they would not withhold the betrothal gifts from the bride's family. Of course, it didn't matter to them if the bride's family was ordinary, but the precious ones basically had to be returned. Moreover, a family like Ding General Manor would break the spine of the empress if they withheld this painting. When Sun Yilin saw this painting, it was not that he didn't think of withholding it, but it was just a thought. He really didn't dare to be so thick-skinned. But even if he knew that, now that Sun Yilin mentioned it in public, he was still very unhappy. Father, I think there are too many people today. It's really not a good time to appreciate the painting. It's better to send the painting to my younger sister first. Then, we should take advantage of this opportunity to ask brother-in-law for advice. If he can show us his painting method now, wouldn't it be better? Sun Yilin suggested with a faint smile. Many people immediately agreed with Sun Yilin's suggestion. This was the prospective bridegroom. After all, he would be very busy for a period of time. If they didn't take advantage of this opportunity to see him, they would have to wait until he finished his work for a while. For those who were interested in painting, this period of time was definitely a trial. Therefore, the painting was rolled up and sent to Sun Yijia. At the same time, people quickly prepared brushes, ink, paper, inkstone, and paints for Luo Jinghua. With so many people watching, it was naturally difficult to refuse. Luo Jinghua thought about how his younger sister taught him, so he also demonstrated in the same way and explained to them. Then, Luo Jinghua, who was picky with his younger sister's hundreds of kinds of semi-finished pigments, looked down on these ready-made pigments, which were far inferior to his own. Even if he mixed them himself, they were not so rich in color, and they couldn't reach his effect. Sure enough, his younger sister was the best. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Sun Yilin saw his slightly hesitant action. No, it's just that the color is too little. At this moment, Luo Jingbo's thick nerves were undoubtedly revealed. Sun Yilin was also a person who loved painting. He thought that the pigments in Duke Dingguo's mansion should be the most complete in the world. Listening to his brother-in-law's tone, it seemed that he didn't take it seriously at all. But thinking of that painting, he might really have too few things here. Does brother-in-law have a lot of pigments in his hands? Yes, my younger sister has a lot of pigments in her hands. She never uses these ready-made pigments. She makes them by herself, and many of them are semi-finished. When they are used and made on the spot, the colors are very rich. To be honest, my younger sister has a lot to do with the completion of the painting of all birds worshipping the phoenix. If I only used the pigments I used before, this painting would definitely not achieve such an effect. Among them, there were also people who had attended Great Elder Princess's birthday banquet. They were very impressed by the amazing little girl, so they couldn't help nodding. Both brother and sister should not be underestimated. Sun Yilin keenly found that Luo Jingbo was slightly relieved. He narrowed his eyes slightly, but said nothing. Luo Jingbo quickly used a few colors to create a new color. Those who usually knew how to mix 2 or 3 colors gained a lot of insight, not to mention those who only knew how to paint with a single color. He was indeed someone who could create a new way of painting. Therefore, during this time, Jingwan wasn't the only one who helped Luo Jingbo adjust his appearance. Luo Jingbo himself also put in a lot of effort. When the painting was sent to Sun Yijia, there were still many people around her. They all wanted to take the opportunity to see this masterpiece of fine brushwork. Listening to the maid's praises from outside, they didn't know whether they were exaggerating or not. The people around her couldn't wait to urge Sun Yijia to open it. Although Sun Yijia was still excited, she calmed down a lot compared with the beginning. She wanted to ask the maids to help her, but someone volunteered to do it and even tried to snatch it. Sun Yijia was worried that it would be damaged, so she subconsciously let go of it, and it was snatched away by someone. At that moment, Sun Yijia's heart even became violent. In the past, who had the courage to snatch things from her hands? Sure enough, they would be trampled on if they were disfigured. Sure enough, she was in a good mood these 2 days and didn't flip out. Did they think she was a pushover? The painting had been opened, and the people who saw it were all silent. Compared to the free and easy style of freehand painting, they naturally preferred this kind of exquisite and delicate painting. They were almost immediately fascinated. It's really well painted. However, thinking of the words that came from outside before, it represented Luo Jingbo's friendship with Sun Yijia. Was this phoenix representing Sun Yijia, and Luo Jingbo was actually one of the hundreds of birds that admired her and worshipped her? This made many people's hearts become filled with jealousy. How could a disfigured slut be worthy? It was just for the sake of Duke Dingguo's mansion. But why couldn't it be them? Why couldn't they meet such a person? Little sister, you have to be careful. If you tear this painting, father will ask you to pay with your life. Sun Yijia suddenly said coldly. Only then did everyone notice that a corner of the painting was being held in the hands of one of Sun Yijia's stepsisters. The edges were a little wrinkled. The movements of her hands and her eyes were red with jealousy and hatred. It was obvious that she wanted to tear the painting apart. I'm afraid that your heart has already flown away. Sure enough, a grown girl can't be kept at home. Duchess Ding came back from Great Elder Princess's birthday banquet. In fact, her daughter was very fond of the boy of the Luo family. Well, I don't want to care about you. As long as you are happy, it's enough. I didn't let you down. Duchess Ding inexplicably felt a little sad. Mother, okay. Go back. I'm still busy. Duchess Ding wiped the corner of her eyes with a brocade handkerchief and left. However, as soon as she returned to her courtyard, she was summoned by someone sent by her grandmother. Old Madam Sun became more and more secluded. She didn't even attend Great Elder Princess's birthday banquet. Now she called Sun Yijia over and didn't say too much. She just told her that it should be her blessing to marry into the Luo family in the end. She told her to live a good life and cherish her fortune in the future. Then, she took out a jewelry box and said, "I have nothing to give you. Just this last thing at the bottom of the box. Take it." "Grandmother, I can't take it." "Just take it. I'm in the backyard. How can they let me be cold and hungry?" "Grandmother, Sister Jia, you are a good girl. Although you have suffered some hardships, it's actually not a big deal. You haven't tasted real bitterness. I also hope that you won't taste it in your life." Sun Yijia snuggled up to old Madam Sun and didn't speak. Sure enough, as expected, in less than 2 hours, the news that Luo Jingbua, the third son of the Luo family, created a new painting method was spread. Among the scholars, especially those who loved painting, it caused a lot of response. However, when the painting appeared, some people thought that he was a man of temperament, some thought that he was hypocritical, and some thought that it was a disgrace to painting. In short, it was talked about enthusiastically. Of course, there were also those who thought that they were noble but pedantic. They scolded him that he was just a child who dared to claim to have created a painting method. He was simply ignorant of the immensity of heaven and earth. This kind of person was simply ruining the reputation of painting. Of course, these discussions didn't reach Luo Jingbua's ears. However, even if they did, he probably wouldn't care. Every time a new thing appeared, there would always be some good or bad comments in the process of being accepted by others. Not only did his grandfather and father say this to him, but his little sister also said this to him. What he needed to do was to keep a calm mind. In the Qi Yuan dynasty, the imperial examinations didn't belong to the Ministry of Rites. Instead, they belonged to the most powerful Ministry of Personnel. Otherwise, the Ministry of Rites wouldn't have such a low status. In the Qi Yuan dynasty, it was ranked last among the 6 ministries. Therefore, Luo Peishan was relatively idle. After the morning court, he looked very leisurely. As soon as Luo Peishan left the palace, he was stopped by someone. "Lord Luo, your Luo family is really something." The person who spoke was one of the 4 cabinet elders. However, he was the last of the 4 cabinet elders. At the same time, he was also Li Hongming's father-in-law. What was the meaning of this sour look? "What do you mean, Cabinet Elder Lu?" Luo Peishan looked very puzzled. "Lord Luo, you don't have to play dumb with me. It's a good thing that your son and grandson are successful." Luo Peishan still looked puzzled. "Lord Lu, please enlighten me." Cabinet Elder Lu cursed in his mind. "I heard that the third son of your family came to Duke Ding's mansion today and brought a special betrothal gift. Lord Luo, you must know what it is, right?" Luo Peishan nodded in understanding. "Lord Lu, are you talking about the painting of birds looking up to the phoenix? It's just my grandson's inferior work. It's not worth mentioning." He waved his hand carelessly. "I heard that it's not inferior work. It's clearly a masterpiece, not to mention a meticulous painting." Luo Peishan smiled. As expected, noble consort Su and Prince Rui's people went to Duke Ding's mansion today. There were probably many people from other factions as well. "Cabinet Elder Lu, you're really well informed. That kid still needs to be honed." "Lord Luo, you don't have to be so harsh. I heard that the painting method has already been perfected. It must have taken a lot of effort. He's not even 20 years old, yet he's already so accomplished. Does Lord Luo still think it's not enough? What should we, who only have unfilial sons and grandchildren in our families, do?" Cabinet Elder Lu's face looked as if he didn't know how lucky he was. When Luo Peishan heard this, he felt so jealous that his teeth were about to fall out. However, he sincerely praised the sons and grandchildren of Cabinet Elder Lu's family. They were like dragons and phoenixes, rarely seen in the heavens and unparalleled on earth. Hearing this, the corners of the people around him twitched. Were you talking about people? Were you talking about gods? Moreover, Lord Luo, are you sure you're praising them and not insulting them? Unfortunately, Luo Peishan's face was full of sincerity, as if he was telling the truth. Even Cabinet Elder Lu had to admit that he had to bow down to this kind of person. This time, he didn't want to stop him from making friends. He just wanted to get rid of him quickly and leave. This old man still has important matters to attend to. I'll take my leave first. Sure enough, he had important matters to attend to because he left in a hurry. Luo Peishan stood in place, stroking his beard. His expression was modest, and he exuded a scholarly aura. Master. Luo Peishan's manservant handed 2 books to him. Luo Peishan tilted his head and made a sound of acknowledgement. Just as he was about to take the books, a hand suddenly reached out and quickly snatched them away. The Chart of Beauties. Lord Luo, you're not being kind. Diwu Taiqing was a bit angry. Luo Peishan almost rolled his eyes at him. Again. He had just received the Chart of Beauties and hadn't looked at it yet. How could Diwu Taiqing return it to him? He flipped it open. This painting, what kind of painting is this? I've never seen it before. Is it strange that you haven't seen it before? Luo Peishan didn't think much of it. Diwu Taiqing hadn't heard about Luo Jingbu's betrothal gifts, but someone beside him had. Could it be those fine brushwork paintings? Everyone who had heard about it was a bit curious, so they all wanted to see it with their own eyes. Diwu Taiqing also had a rough understanding of it from their noisy chatter. This is the Chart of Beauties that your family's last made, and your grandson painted it. Why not? The paintings on these 2 Chart of Beauties were indeed painted by his grandson at his granddaughter's request. These paintings were made some time ago. There were some flowers and trees that Luo Jingbu didn't know about. Jingwan first painted them, then copied them for Luo Jingbu, and then had the people around her burn them. Now, the fine brushwork paintings around her were basically unfinished. When seen by outsiders, they would think that she was still learning how to paint. Because she was also interested in freehand brushwork, she would occasionally switch to that side. It could be said that Jingwan really did a lot for her brother. However, Jingwan probably didn't know that the paintings that she asked people to burn were actually collected by Nanny Gong and sent to Li Hongyuan. Only some of the abandoned paintings were burned. It didn't matter if she sacrificed a little for her brother, but Li Hongyuan felt distressed when he saw it. He couldn't bear to see Wan's painstaking efforts go up in flames just like that. The surrounding adults were only interested in the fine brushwork paintings, but not in the Chart of Beauties. Therefore, they weren't stingy with showing it to them. Previously, they had only heard about it, but now that they saw the finished product, it was really a brand new method. Moreover, it seemed that the technique was really perfect and impeccable. It was really amazing. As the saying goes, what you hear is false, but what you see is true. While the others were passing it around, Diwu Taiqing and Luo Peishan were talking and bargaining. However, the voices beside them were getting softer and softer. By the time the 2 of them noticed, not only were there not many people, but the 2 Chart of Beauties were also missing. The 2 of them couldn't help but be angry. Where are the things? Then, someone told them rather sympathetically, one was taken away by Pavilion Elder Wan, and the other is in the hands of Minister Zhong. Luo Peishan's face turned green, while Diwu Taiqing directly cursed. He rolled up his sleeves, looking like he was going to fight with them. Luo Peishan wanted to find someone to get the things back, but he was once again blocked by Li Hongming. Seeing that the Luo family seemed to be completely defecting to Li Hongming's side, if he was only the minister of the Board of Rites, Li Hongming might not have bothered to pull him over. However, the situation was different now. Previously, there was the third young lady of the Luo family, who was indebted to many people. Now, there was the third young master of the Luo family, who was very likely to be famous all over the world and even become the founder of a generation. The influence of such a person was too great. How could he just let Li Hongyi get hold of him? Naturally, he had to think of a way to pull him over. If he couldn't get him, he would destroy him. In fact, after the marriage between Luo Jingbue and Sun Yijia was agreed, Luo Peishan had already expected this result. Therefore, when Li Hongming invited him, he didn't refuse. He couldn't refuse. When Li Hongyi learned that Li Hongming had invited Luo Peishan away, he was furious. However, when he rushed out, they were already gone. Li Hongming, I don't believe that you can still break up the marriage between my cousin and Luo Jingbue. Li Hongming couldn't break up this marriage because his father, Lu Qingdi, wanted Sun Yijia to get married smoothly. Whoever dared to break up this marriage would have to eat a bear's heart and leopard's gall. The result would be a miserable death. However, Li Hongming still had Luo Rongbing in his hands. Previously, he didn't care about this person who seemed to want to switch sides to his side. However, now he was a good chess piece to contain the Luo family. Even if Luo Rongbing saw that the current situation was not right and wanted to shrink back, he wouldn't give him a chance. First, he lost the beauty chart. Then, he was pulled away to talk in a roundabout way. His heart was stifled. After the stifled Luo Shangshu returned to the Fu, he grabbed his fourth son, who was going to enter the exam tomorrow, and gave him a good scolding. Luo Rongwei, who was preparing to relax the day before the exam, was extremely depressed. Who did he provoke? After venting for a while, Luo Peishan's anger subsided and he called his other children and grandchildren over. His expression was much more pleasant. He specifically asked Luo Jingbue about the betrothal gifts today and nodded in satisfaction. However, when they didn't notice, he looked at Luo Rongbing coldly. Today, the Luo family also sent some things to the Qin family. After all, Qin Jingmin was going to enter the exam tomorrow, so they must send some auspicious things. The next day, Luo Peishan said everything he wanted to say to his fourth son. In the end, his ranking would depend on his own luck. As for the other three branches, they also expressed what they wanted to express. Therefore, when they entered the exam hall, because the children of the fourth branch were still young, only Madame Lu brought the servants to send Luo Si off. However, compared to those who came to the capital alone to take the exam, this was considered very grand. Of course, there were also those who were not as good as those who came with the whole family. Luo Rongwei was more open-minded. In any case, his knowledge was not very outstanding. It would be best if he did well in the exam. If he didn't do well, it was not impossible for him to live the rest of his life. Madame Lu waited for Luo Rongwei to enter the exam hall. When she saw the people from the Qin family, she first greeted them. Min Gear has already entered. Then, she saw a servant carrying a basket. It was clearly prepared for the exam. Moreover, Madame Lu saw that third uncle's family was very anxious, but Min Gear was nowhere to be seen. Madame Lu's heart thumped. What's going on? Chen Jingmin's mother was so anxious that she almost cried. Our Min Gear was asked to go out yesterday. He hasn't returned yet. What if he missed the exam? Moreover, what if he met with an accident? How am I supposed to live? Shut up, what are you howling for? Min Gear is naturally fine. Chen Jingmin's grandmother sternly stopped her, but everyone could hear that her voice was trembling. She was comforting herself. This. Madame Lu didn't know what to say. It was reasonable to say that Min Gear, that child, was not so ignorant. Did you send someone to look for him? You should also send someone to the Luo family to inform them. Last night, his servant came back and told us that Min Gear was discussing knowledge with his friends. He wouldn't finish it in a short time, so he rested there last night. This morning, he came back early, but we waited and waited, but he didn't come back. We didn't know where he was resting, so we brought the things here first. But now, it's getting late, and he still hasn't appeared. Madame Lu also became anxious. If they missed the exam, they would have to wait for 3 more years. Although he was only 16 years old, and after 3 years, he would only be 19 years old. Among the group of examinees, he was still a very young person. However, for third miss, it was very different. If she took the exam now, 2 years later, the person she married would be an official. If she took the exam again 3 years later, she would still be an imperial scholar. Their third miss would feel wronged. Seeing that the people were getting fewer and fewer, the doors of the exam hall were about to close. He's here, he's here. Master, madam, master, grandmother, young master is here. The servants who were scattered around finally came back with good news. The old and young, who were originally frowning, immediately smiled. It's good that he made it in time. Chen Jingmin's speed was very fast. He almost trotted over. But when he got closer, everyone found that his complexion was not very good. Compared to the young man who always had a gentle smile on his face, this time, he was surprisingly cold. Moreover, there was a trace of ruthlessness and hatred in the corner of his eyes. Not only that, his clothes were also wrinkled. Min Gear, what's going on? Chen Zhengmin took the things from the servant's hand. Grandfather, grandmother, father, mother, don't ask first. I can't explain clearly in a few sentences. Wait until I finish the exam. I'll go in first. Then, without looking back, he walked towards the entrance of the exam hall. Everyone looked at each other. This, compared to the Qin family, Madame Lu's expression was surprisingly ugly. If she didn't see wrongly, there was clearly a red mark on Min Gear's collar. Moreover, it seemed to be a teeth mark. She was not a virgin, so how could she not know what it was? Good for you, Chen Jingmin. When you were engaged to the third girl, you said so nicely. But now, you're fooling around outside. You even did it on the day before the exam. It's fine if you joke about your future. That's his own business. But what do you take our third girl for? Just as they were about to say something, the people of the Qin family saw the servant walking over with his head drooping. Third Old Master Qin pulled him over. Tell me, what's going on? Didn't you go back last night and say that your young master was discussing knowledge with a friend? Why did he become like this? The servant had a sad face. Master, I don't know how it turned out like this. Suddenly, a burst of giggling came from a carriage. It was clearly the carriage that was following behind the errand boy. At first, they didn't notice it and thought it was just passing by. But now, it was clear that it was coming for them. The curtain of the carriage was lifted. There were 3 people inside. The 2 outside were obviously maidservants, and the fiery figure behind them was leaning lazily with a bit of charm. The men subconsciously looked away. Whose girl was this? In public, she was like a woman in a brothel. She had no manners and was improper. The woman laughed again. Third Old Master Qin, instead of asking this little attendant, why don't you ask me instead? After all, I was the one who arranged everything. Princess. How did Min Gear have anything to do with a princess? Even Madame Lu had just entered the capital not long ago. They really didn't know which family this princess was from. However, since she dared to call herself that, then naturally, she was not lying. Greetings, princess. As a princess, they were shameless, but they couldn't not be polite. No need for formalities. We will be a family in the future. It's not good to be so polite. The person in the carriage said with a smile. What family? The Chin family was a bit confused, but Madame Lu's eyes were a bit fierce. Jingwan hurriedly reached out to calm Madame Luo down. Grandmother, don't worry, it's okay, it's okay. Just as Madame Luo's breathing calmed down, the servants came to report that a woman who called herself an imperial daughter had come to the door. Her attitude was extremely arrogant and unreasonable, and she shouted that she wanted to see third young Mississippi. In fact, that imperial daughter kept calling her Luo Jingwan little slut. This naturally alarmed everyone in the residence. When the woman saw the crowd, she scolded even more harshly. Jingwan stood next to Madame Luo and watched Li Ruyu pointing a whip at her, calling her a slut and a lowly slut. Except for a few people in the third branch, everyone's expression was ugly, and they all wanted to tear her mouth. However, Jingwan, the person involved, was exceptionally calm and didn't even change her expression. Little slut, didn't you see that I'm here? Why aren't you serving me tea? Jingwan nodded. Your Highness is right, I should serve you. As she spoke, she walked down the stairs. What was Jingwan saying? Did they hear it wrong? Was she afraid of the other party's identity? Come, close the door and ask the imperial daughter's two maids to leave and serve them tea. Li Ruyu, who was originally smug and thought that Jingwan was afraid of her, finally felt that something was wrong. Little slut, what are you doing? Hearing the sound of the door being closed, she couldn't help but look back and involuntarily took 2 steps back, as if she felt embarrassed, and puffed out her chest. Little slut, let me tell you, what are you doing? Stop it. Seeing the 2 maids being dragged away by the strong woman, Li Ruyu waved her whip in exasperation. The woman was also cunning and directly used the maid in her hand to block the whip. Then, the maid screamed and the skin on her face was torn open. Nanny, the whip is such a dangerous thing. How can we let the princess, a noble, hold it in her hand? What if she hurts herself? Ask someone to take it aside and keep it safe. When the princess leaves, we can return it to her. Nanny Gong naturally obeyed her master's orders, so she easily removed Li Ruyu's whip. The maid was restrained and the whip was taken away. Seeing Jingwan approaching step by step, Li Ruyu had a bad feeling. Little slut, what are you doing? Let me tell you, Your Highness, didn't you just say that you want me to serve you? Didn't I follow your orders and come to serve you personally? Jingwan moved her wrists and suddenly took 2 quick steps forward. Then, she punched Li Ruyu's ribs hard. Li Ruyu screamed and instinctively bent over. Jingwan grabbed her shoulders and lifted her leg. Li Ruyu's stomach was hit hard again. Jingwan stepped back and Li Ruyu fell to the ground. Jingwan looked no different from an ordinary girl, but she had been training all year round and her strength was not weak. In addition, when she was learning self-defense in her previous life, she had learned to use the least amount of strength to cause the most damage to the opponent. Basically, it was a technique that would not leave a scar. Speaking of which, after she became a pampered lady, she had used some small life skills not long ago. Now that she had even taken out this thing, it was quite unexpected and also quite exciting. This unforeseen event made everyone look at each other in dismay. This girl was really, one could amaze people with a single brilliant feat. Not only was she good in other aspects, but she was also good at beating people up. And the person she was beating was the princess, a member of the imperial family. She had the courage of a bear and the courage of a leopard. Li Ruyu hugged her stomach and curled into a ball. Her face was pale and it looked like she was in great pain. Little slut, Jingwan squatted down and reached out to grab Li Ruyu's hair. She lifted her head. Princess, do you have any instructions? Are you not satisfied with my service? Don't worry, I will definitely satisfy the princess today. She curved her lips and smiled gently. Li Ruyu trembled. She suddenly felt that Luo Jingwan was a demon just like Li Hongyuan. Mama, bring a chair over. I see that the princess is being served too comfortably and can't stand properly. The chair was quickly brought over. Jingwan grabbed Li Ruyu's hair and lifted her up, placing her on the chair. Miss, your fingers are not fully healed yet. Don't use too much strength. If you need anything, just let me know. Jingwan was speechless. Her fingers had healed long ago. On the day she came back with the injury, she had adjusted the color of her brother's hair for a long time. She did not see her say anything. Now, it was just that her fingertips had not recovered their previous smoothness. All right, her brother was on her side, and Li Ruyu was just an outsider. It was not worth hurting herself for her. Your Highness, please sit tight. Otherwise, I'm worried that you won't need to twist your hair if this happens a few more times. You'll become a sister-in-law directly. Nanny Gong helped Li Ruyu up and said in an exceptionally gentle manner. Li Ruyu's body trembled again. The feeling of facing Li Hongyuan became even stronger. Jingwan looked at Mama Gong. It seemed that she was the expert. Jingwan placed her hand on Li Ruyu's head. Li Ruyu was about to raise her hand to push her away when Jingwan's other hand punched her. Li Ruyu screamed again. Although the punch did not land on her body, they knew from Li Ruyu's reaction that it must be very painful. Mother, Will Wan Wan. When Luo Rongyan saw his daughter like this, he did not know what to say. It was really unexpected. His daughter was usually so obedient and delicate. How could she be so fierce when she hit someone? Madame Luo waved her hand and said coldly, "Don't you know that she bullied Wan Wan first? As her father, you can't help your daughter vent her anger. It's fine if you don't allow her to vent her anger." Luo Rongyan touched his nose and did not dare to say anything. His daughter was his mother's treasure. Everyone else had to stand aside. Even if his daughter did such a disgraceful thing, it was his fault as her father. He was incompetent. What's more, it's just the powerless Prince Chang's mansion. It's not Princess Ryu's fault. She still has someone to back her up. So what if I hit her now? I'd like to see who she can find to help her. Now it was the Empress and Prince Kong who wanted to win over their family. Would they find trouble with the Luo family for Li Ruyu? Madame Luo did not lower her voice at all and it fell clearly into Li Ruyu's ears. She regretted it. She thought that other than not being able to pester brother Lin, she could continue to be a tyrant like before. In fact, that was not the case. Even a bitch like Luo Jingwan had the guts to hit her. Little bitch, how dare you? This princess is the princess of the imperial family. The imperial family. Jingwan bent down and whispered in Li Ruyu's ear, an unfavored prince will be bullied. Who do you think you are? She made trouble for her again and again. Now, because of something that did not happen, she schemed to steal her fiancé. If she could tolerate it, what could not? Now that she delivered herself to her door, Jingwan felt sorry for herself if she did not vent her anger. When Jingwan stopped, Li Ruyu slipped on the ground again. She curled into a ball and trembled in pain. Her face was covered in tears and snot. There was no trace of her fiery and flamboyant appearance. All the onlookers were silent, including the Qin family who had already arrived at the Luo residence. Jingwan, who was standing behind with a cold and fierce face, was really a little scary. Nanny, take her away to freshen up. Then, examine her body. Jingwan was unusually calm. She said the words, examine her body, very naturally, as if there was nothing wrong with it. Before they came, the Qin family was still thinking about how to resolve this matter. Should they retain Jingwan, their daughter-in-law and granddaughter-in-law? But if what the princess said was right, their Min-gear must marry her. After all, it was a big crime to take the princess as a concubine. But to make Miss Luo a concubine? Don't even think about it. Breaking off the engagement seemed to be the only choice. As for how to say it so that the two families would not become enemies. From the looks of it now, there was actually no need for them to say a word. The lady had already made her choice. Moreover, such a gentle and good-natured lady was actually so fierce when she was angered. Could their brother Min really subdue her? Jingwan glanced at the Qin family's expression. It seemed that even if Li Ruyu didn't lose her virginity, there was no need to persuade her to stay. After freshening up, Li Ruyu was still pretty, but she was dispirited. Miss, Princess Ruyu is no longer a virgin. Oh. She really is a girl who will do anything to achieve her goal. She sacrificed so much. I hope she won't regret it in the future. Mother, go get the marriage certificate and give it to third granduncle. My marriage with cousin Min will be annulled. Once the engagement was annulled, even if the man was at fault, her daughter's reputation would be affected. But from her mouth, it was over with just one sentence. Madame Zhang had long been frightened by her daughter, so she did whatever she was told to do. While waiting for Madame Zhang to get the marriage certificate, Jingwan acted as if nothing had happened and even invited the Qin family into the room. Madame Luo looked at Jingwan. At this time, she didn't know if she really didn't care or if she was pretending not to care. But no matter what the situation was, it made her heart ache. Several times, she wanted to say something but stopped. No one left, but they were all silent, and no one said a word. In the end, it was still Jingwan who spoke. Third granduncle, let's hide the annulment from cousin Min for now. When he comes out of the examination hall, tell him that I said to focus on the examination. No matter what, we can talk about it after the court examination. As she spoke, she even winked playfully. If his romantic feelings affect the examination and he doesn't get the desired ranking, I will look down on him. He was touched by Jingwan's thoughtfulness. For such a girl, perhaps even if Min-gear couldn't subdue her, it wouldn't matter. Unfortunately, it was useless to say anything. That princess directly pushed the matter to a dead end. There was no other way. Jingwan personally returned the marriage certificate to the Qin family. Then, she looked at Li Ruyu meaningfully. Now that she's a family member, if there's anything that doesn't go your way, just teach her well. A princess without anyone to support her still wanted to put on airs after getting married. Li Ruyu was really scared by Jingwan and shrank back with all her might. I think you know very well what to say and what not to say. After all, he's your future husband. It's not good for you to affect his future. Chapter 105. Jingwan had wanted to send Li Ruyu to Prince Cheng's carriage and send her back directly. However, Li Ruyu did not appreciate her kindness and insisted on being supported by her two maidservants. Since that was the case, Jingwan could only send her off personally. Before she boarded the carriage, Jingwan smiled and said, I will wait for your highness to come and find me again. When that time comes, I will definitely treat your highness well and ensure that your highness will feel at home. Li Ruyu's entire body was in pain. It was so painful that she could not stop trembling. She wanted to be more unyielding in front of Jingwan, but she could not. Even though she gritted her teeth in hatred, she did not dare to scold Jingwan. She was afraid that Jingwan would beat her again. As the saying goes, like master, like servant. Usually, they would be arrogant beside Li Ruyu. However, at this moment, they were like frightened quails. They curled up and did not dare to breathe loudly. It was obvious that they had enjoyed themselves after being taken away. Luo Jingwan, what do you have to be so proud of? Your fiancé is gone, and he'll soon become my consort. This is retribution for snatching brother Lin away. Now, you're just a slut whose engagement was broken off. Looking at the smiling Jingwan, Li Ruyu swallowed the rest of her words. Your Highness, you're right. But so what? It's just a broken engagement. It's not like I can't get married. I will definitely have another fiancé. I just don't know if your Highness has the ability to snatch him away again. The commandery princess could come to his door and let him sleep with her again. However, the first time was worth money, but the second time was not. He slept with a commandery princess in a one-night stand. Although she was a loose woman, he did not lose anything. He just took it as going to a brothel, and it was the kind that did not cost him anything. If other people knew, they would definitely flock to him, and the commandery princess would not have to trouble herself to come to his door. How good was that, right? It's just that my cousin Min is a little unlucky. I don't know how cuckolded he will be. However, when that time comes, even if you are a princess, he will have a reason to break off the engagement. Speaking of this subject suddenly recalled something. Was it the first time that the princess had slept with someone last night? Looking at the princess's casual attitude, it seems that she is very familiar with him. Nanny, do you think that if the princess had already lost her virginity, cousin would not have to take responsibility? Granny Gong frowned cooperatively. Commandery princess is a member of the imperial family after all. If she doesn't let go of young Master Minbiao, he will most likely have to marry her. The imperial family has to care about their reputation, and young Master Minbiao cannot be labeled as heartless. That will be detrimental to his future. Oh, then cousin Min can only suffer for a while. Jingwan felt that it was not worth it for her cousin. Li Ruyuk pointed at Jingwan with a trembling finger. She stuttered for a long time and fainted. She almost died and fell to the ground with her two maids. Nanny Gong was kind enough to lend a hand. It seems that the princess is tired. That's right. Since she schemed against my cousin yesterday, she hasn't stopped. In that case, let's send her back quickly. Jingwan glanced at the coachman, who had heard all her words but did not respond. With the help of Nanny Gong, Li Ruyu was sent to the carriage. Looking at the carriage going away, Jingwan frowned. That coachman feels strange. There are many strange people in the world. Who knows what's going on with him? If he is sensible, he will know what to say and what not to say. Nanny Gong was not surprised that the King of Hell would send someone to follow them all the way. However, this time, the person was not qualified, which made Lin Mingya see some clues. No, Nanny, I just feel that the coachman looks familiar. Mama Gong's heart skipped a beat. To be honest, she couldn't tell who the person who was sent was. Thinking about it carefully, when the young lady was in direct contact with the King of Hell, who was with her, it seemed that other than Muan, there was only an Yi, who was both an open and secret guard. As long as she confirmed whether the coachman was an Yi, she would know. If it was, then a certain someone would have to be more careful in the future. After all, the young lady was so sharp. If she discovered a clue in advance, then, Nanny Gong was helpless. It seemed that even if Lin Mingya found out, she would still be the one to suffer. According to the nature of the King of Hell, since Lin Mingya knew it, then he did not need to hide it. She was afraid that he would brazenly steal the fragrance and often attack the fragrance at night. There are many people who look alike in the world. Maybe Lin Mingya saw someone who looked like him by chance. Jingwan nodded. It was probably so. A coachman could not make any trouble. Even if he repeated her words to Commandery Prince Cheng, his wife, what could he do? Could Commandery Prince Cheng find her? Or could Commandery Prince Cheng's wife use this to ruin her reputation? Where did Lin Mingya hear things like the first time, the second time, and the brothel? These are not things that Lin Mingya should know. There were some things that could not be said in front of outsiders. However, since Lin Mingya did something wrong, she had to say what should be said. Probably when I was reading a book by accident. Nanny, don't be so calculative. Jingwan felt guilty. At Lin Mingya's age, it's not a big deal even if you know some things. In noble families, when Lin Mingya's family reached a certain age, the elders would more or less let them know some things about sex. There were even some concubines with special backgrounds who would teach their daughters in advance how to serve men. However, knowing is one thing, saying it is another thing. If people hear it, it will be bad for Lin Mingya's reputation. Jingwan hurriedly held Nanny Gong's arm. Nanny, I know I was wrong. I will be careful next time. Nubi hopes that Lin Mingya will not do it again. But Lin Mingya always knows how to behave properly. I don't need to say more. I know that you're doing this for my own good. You treat me like your own daughter. I'll remember everything you said. Lin Mingya is the master, and I am a servant. How can a servant treat a master as a daughter and disregard the seniority? What a scandal. Okay, Nanny, I said something wrong again. As my servant, you should take me as the center and think of me in everything. You can't put anything in your heart except for me. You should do anything for me. One could say that she was inflexible, but sometimes she would allow her master to do as she pleased. One could say that she ignored the rules, but she was strict and upright, scrupulously abiding by her duties. But one thing was for sure, and that was that she really did everything for Jingwan's sake. In this world, it would be hard to find a servant more loyal and devoted than her. However, how could her previous master be willing to let such a person go? Of course. Jingwan secretly rolled her eyes. She knew it would be like this. Nanny Gong saw Jingwan's action and laughed in her heart. It was better for Lin Mingya to be lively. After returning, Jingwan found that the atmosphere in the room seemed to be a bit strange. The Qin family was embarrassed, while some of the Luo family were sullen, and some of them were obviously angry. When the Qin family saw Jingwan, it was as if they saw their savior. Third Master Chen's old face was wrinkled with a smile. Well, Wan, you know, your cousin Min, third brother, Madame Luo interrupted him calmly. Wan is just a girl. She's the one who's hurt the most in this matter. She's usually strong, but she's also a gentle and considerate child. She hides everything in her heart and refuses to show it because she's afraid that we'll be worried. She doesn't blame Brother Min and even broke off the engagement without asking for anything. She's already done this. I don't know what else third brother wants. Wan, go back to your courtyard. Jingwan probably knew that after sending away the people she didn't want to work, it was time for the two families to argue. Although she had lived in this world for more than 10 years, she wasn't born and raised here. There were some things that she couldn't completely integrate into her thoughts. For example, she actually didn't think that this was a big deal, but it wasn't in the eyes of others. At least, the right and wrong of this matter had to be discussed. Grandmother, this matter. The reason for this matter was actually her. Although she did not do anything wrong, it was all Li Ruyu's fault. She did not reflect on her own problems and vented all her mistakes and resentment on Jingwan. As for Li Ruyu's revenge because she snatched Sun Yilin away, if Li Ruyu did not say it herself, Jingwan would not have thought of this. She only thought that she had offended Li Ruyu because she did not give her face again and again, so she came up with such a bad idea. It was purely the logic of a robber, but she did it. The most innocent person was actually Qin Jingmin. However, he was easily tricked by a little girl. He was not that innocent. In other words, he was a little incompetent. If Jingwan knew that this was all planned by Li Hongyuan, what would her expression be? Li Ruyu's brain did not think of Qin Jingmin at all. It was Li Hongyuan who asked people to instigate her and lead her to come up with such a plan. As for Qin Jingmin, in fact, after Li Ruyu schemed against him, he found out. If it was really only Li Ruyu and the two little maids, he could still escape. But with Li Hongyuan's interference, he was powerless. So far, who did not suffer losses when facing Li Hongyuan? Including Jingwan, although Jingwan herself did not know. Wan, go back. Grandmother will take care of this matter. Jingwan opened her mouth, but in the end, she did not say anything. Grandmother probably knew that she had offended Li Ruyu and caused her to make such a move. Grandmother intended to push all the blame to Qin Jingmin and minimize the impact on her. In this way, she might even have some conflicts with her own third brother. She had already done this, so what reason did she have to undermine her? Compared to Qin Jingmin's cousin, whom she had only seen a few times, she had been with her for more than 10 years. She held her in the palm of her hand and doted on her. There was no need to consider who she was biased towards. She silently apologized to Qin Jingmin in her heart. Anyway, except for Li Ruyu's bad temper, he still had a beautiful wife, so it was not a loss. Granddaughter will take her leave. Jingwan bowed to the others and then left. I'm going to see little sister. Luo Jingbo quickly followed. Madame Zhang, who had been a little absent-minded because of Jingwan's beating, came back to her senses. Daughter-in-law will also go and see. Madame Luo waved her hand impatiently and sent her away. Anyway, this daughter-in-law would not be of any use here. Therefore, before Jingwan could say a few words to her brother, her mother caught up with her again. Wan, are you okay? Jingwan thought she was asking if her heart was uncomfortable, but she grabbed her hand and looked. Jingwan did not know whether to laugh or cry. Mother, I'm fine. I was worried that I would scare you. At first, you were scared, but no matter what, you are still my daughter. I gave birth to you. Well, although her mother often made people feel helpless and speechless, and was often not in the mood, her care and tolerance for her children were unquestionable. The words she occasionally said were quite heartwarming. It's good that I didn't scare you. Otherwise, it would be my fault. Madame Zhang looked at her daughter and was a little conflicted. Wan, don't be sad. Although Mingir broke off the engagement, it must be God who wants to give you a better marriage. Our daughter is so good and deserves the best. Well, Jingwan thought she did not think of this. However, the people around her had reached a consensus. She was the best and deserved the best. She actually wanted to ask what the best one was like. She assured her mother again and again that she was really fine and didn't mind. Finally, she managed to coax her mother away. She didn't like to talk to her mother. Once or twice, it was fine. But if it happened too often, she might as well be alone. Luo Jingbo originally wanted to leave, but was stopped by Jingwan. Seeing Jingwan's posture, Luo Jingbo had a bad feeling. He swallowed and said, "Little sister, third brother is, HM? What? Third brother, do you have something to say?" Jingwan asked with a smile and even moved her wrist. Luo Jingbo immediately withered. He did not want to try his little sister's ruthless way of beating people. If he was beaten by his little sister, he would not be able to fight back and would be embarrassed. Actually, this was not a big deal. The main thing was that he might be beaten even more. He would definitely be in the wrong if he let his little sister beat him up. He deserved it no matter how many times she beat him up. Moreover, he was thick-skinned. If his little sister's hand was not hurt, she would beat him up again with a plank. Therefore, look at how high Luo Jingbo's awareness was. He had analyzed all the consequences and the pros and cons. Most importantly, he did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. What was he doing? Jingwan only felt that after this incident with Qin Jingmin, she felt that her brother still needed to be taught a lesson. When he was dragged to the begonia house again, Jingwan carried out a 2-hour-long lesson on how to guard against women. Luo Jingbo only felt that according to his little sister's words, all women in the world, except for those closest to you, were not good people. If you saw them, you should drive them away with the most resolute attitude. If you still could not do so, you should be more self-aware and avoid them. It was fine even if you were a little embarrassed at that time. If you were to be schemed against and have to bring them home, Luo Jingbo knew that his little sister did not have a good impression of her concubines. Those in the family were all elders. Due to filial piety, she could not say anything. However, he was different, especially after listening to his little sister's preaching for so long. He was very clear that after Ijia married into the family, if he could get a concubine, no, even if it was a concubine, or even if he had a one-night stand outside, she would probably beat him up. In fact, beating him up would be considered a good thing. She would probably ignore him from then on. He was very sure that this was not just a guess. He was not a real blockhead. His little sister had told him so much. How could he not know what she was thinking? Fortunately, Luo Jingbo was not very interested in women. It was not impossible for him to stay by his wife's side for the rest of his life. His little sister was already a big girl. Some of her actions were inappropriate, but he still stroked Jingwan's head. Little sister, don't worry. Your third brother will only have you as my sister-in-law in this lifetime. I will never be tainted by another woman. Did you say that yourself? Jingwan looked up at him. If you break your promise, you will castrate yourself. Luo Jingbo's body stiffened. Little sister, isn't this a little too harsh? Why? Are you going back on your word now? Jingwan glared at him with her hands on her hips. She looked as if she would do it herself if he dared to nod his head. No, absolutely not. I promise you that I will do what I say. I will never be tricked. Of course, he would do what he said. In fact, when he was young, he knew that his little sister had a special trait. She did not make promises easily, nor did she listen to promises easily. For the former, she would keep her promises. For the latter, if you did not make a promise and did something that she could not stand, she might forgive you. But if you made a promise but failed to keep it, then even if you spent 10 times or 100 times more sincerity, you would never be able to move her and beg for her forgiveness. She was really the most gentle, but also the most cold and hard. Jingwan clapped her hands. That's more like it. Okay, now that this matter is over, let's talk about business. What's the matter? Fine brushwork has been released. Why? Do you want to be surrounded by people every day and go around personally demonstrating it to others? Then, what else can I do? Luo Jingbo asked in confusion. This is what we are going to do next. Come and help. Jingwan handed him a newly bound book. Take a look at the sample first. Luo Jingbo flipped through it. Little sister, are you going to publish a book directly? The text part can be printed, but the accompanying pictures. There is no way to print the accompanying pictures. That's why I can't do too much. I have been preparing since I taught you how to draw. Take a simple thing as an example, such as a bird, a flower, or a small mountain rock. I will draw the step by step and write the specific drawing method next to the accompanying picture. It's simple and clear. The back of the book in your hand also has it. You can take a look. Luo Jingbo flipped to the back of the book. Indeed, it was as his little sister had said. She had listed out all the possible problems one might encounter in detail and explained them in detail. Besides that, there were complete drawings on every few pages. One had to follow the instructions in the book to complete them. As long as one had some foundation in drawing, they would have to learn the most basic northeastern style in the end. The rest would depend on one's talent and hard work. Little sister, you are the best. You have thought of everything. You have helped your third brother a lot. You are my brother. If I don't help you, who else should I help? As for the complete paintings, I originally wanted to let you complete them, but after thinking about it carefully, the quantity is too large. At first, I planned to make 1,000 copies. Even if there were only 3 paintings for each book, it would still require 3,000 copies. In fact, 3 paintings is indeed too little. How long would it take to complete them? Thus, I simply cut it in half and made 500 copies. Then, I sorted out all the paintings you completed and imitated your painting style. After this period of time, I estimated that with 5 paintings for each book, there would be about 50 to 60 books. Luo Jingbo looked at the paintings that Jingwan had sorted out and was shocked. His lips squirmed. Little sister, you don't have to do this. It is so troublesome. I might as well teach you directly. Of the 300 or so paintings, he had at most 50 of them. The remaining 200 or so paintings. How long had it been? Even if she had been imitating his paintings from the beginning, she had averaged more than 10 paintings a day. Not to mention that she had stayed in the White Dragon Temple for so many days. A few days ago, she had helped him mix the colors. She did not seem to have neglected other things. Did she not sleep all day long? Little sister, absolutely not. Your body will not be able to bear it. You are not allowed to draw anymore. Not to mention Luo Jingbo, even Mama Gong did not know that her young lady had drawn so many paintings. The paintings that she had asked her to put away were not completed. That was not a small number. Had she completed more than the original? Mama Gong felt that she had neglected her duty. Don't be so nervous. Not every painting is different. Many of them are the same. It is very fast to draw. I can finish 4 or 5 paintings in 2 hours, or even more. It won't take much time at all. That won't do. I will find time to teach, third brother. If you want the fine brushwork to be accepted by the world as soon as possible, you can't teach it directly. Okay, don't say so much. Hurry up and help me. Separate the pictures for each book. Because the others don't know how to match the pictures together best, only the 2 of us can do it. The rest of the text will be handed over to grandfather. Let him find someone to print it and put it into a book. 500 books, one every 10 days. It will be divided into 10 times. Each time, there will be exactly 50 books. Little sister, yes. Jingwan buried her head in sorting out the paintings and did not even raise her head. I have taken all the benefits, and you have to work hard to do the rest. It makes third brother feel, what? Jingwan looked up in confusion. Nothing. Luo Jingbo hurriedly stepped forward and helped with the sorting. Luo Jingbo looked at Jingwan's painting. To be honest, if he was not sure that he had never painted before, he would even think that he had painted it himself. He knew what level he was at now. He was very clear that he was far from reaching the level of his little sister. That painting of 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix, because he had put in 120% of his effort and with the help of his little sister, it could be called a fine work. In fact, as long as he compared his painting with his little sister's, he would know how much strength she had hidden. When the first batch is taken out, just say that it is some of the previous paintings. It doesn't matter if it is a little inferior, but grandfather still needs to take it to different degrees to make it look old. Fortunately, it is at most a year old. Even if it is deliberately made to look old, it is basically impossible to tell. Probably no one will be able to tell whether it is true or false. However, third brother has to try his best to get closer to the painting of 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix. Third brother will work hard. If it was before, under the preaching of his grandfather and father, he would only put in 70% or 80% of his effort to learn. Now, he would put in 120% of his effort. Otherwise, how could he be worthy of his little sister's profound effort? The most important thing today was the imperial examination. There were no major events in other places. Luo Peishan came back early. When he came back, he was directly called to the rear courtyard by his old wife. She told him that Jingwan had broken off the engagement. Luo Peishan's expression was naturally not very good. After a moment of silence, he said, "It's good that she broke off the engagement. Chen Zhengmin is really far from being worthy of my good granddaughter." It could be seen that although the cause of this matter might be Jingwan, Luo Peishan's impression of Chen Zhengmin had also fallen greatly. Although Wanwan said that this matter should be delayed for a while before it is made public, this old man can't help but talk to Prince Qing. How can he have the face to enjoy the salary of a prince after raising such a shameless daughter? And that Li Ruyu, the face of the daughters of the imperial family, has been completely lost by her. How can she be qualified to enjoy the salary of a princess? Old Madame Luo was silent. Other people in the Luo family might not know about the things that Jingwan had instilled in Luo Jingbua, but Luo Peishan and old Madame Luo, who were the most powerful people in the Luo family, knew a little about it. In fact, these things were deliberately leaked to them by Mama Gong. Although she was mainly responsible for Jingwan's personal matters, if she wanted to not leak a single word about controlling the elegant begonia house, she could do it. The reason why she did this was because her young lady's idea was somewhat shocking. It even violated a woman's 3 obediences and 4 virtues, and violated a woman's commandments. Luo Jingbua was influenced by her, and in the future, he might do something that others would think was unreasonable. At that time, when Luo Jingbua was reprimanded, her young lady looked on anxiously from the side, and even stood up to defend him. This made everyone feel that her young lady was so rebellious, unruly, and improper. It was better to let them know in advance. Then, if they had any ideas, they would say it to her young lady in advance, and not wait until the matter was serious and out of control. Luo Jingbua was shocked and suddenly looked up at Luo Peishan. "Grandfather knows." "Not all, but I know the main thing." "Grandfather, it's good that you're not angry." Luo Jingbua still didn't want his little sister to be punished. "Why should I be angry? Your little sister has never thought of hurting others, has she? In fact, grandfather has long discovered that she is a different kind of girl. She looks as gentle as water, but in fact, she has a clear distinction between love and hate in her bones. She is tenacious and unyielding. She thinks what others don't dare to think, and can do what others can't. If other women knew her thoughts, they would scold her harshly, but in fact, they would be extremely jealous and yearning for her. They had been taught since they were young to treat their husbands as their sky. Had they never thought that their husbands would treat them as their sky? They couldn't think about it, didn't dare to think about it, and didn't dare to say it. If they did, they would be drowned in the pond. Jingbua, grandfather doesn't think of himself as a pedantic and unreasonable old man. Luo Jingbua laughed. "Grandfather, don't say that. You're a refined old man. You've learned bad things from little sister, and your guts have grown up from little sister. Isn't that because you and little sister are so close? It hasn't been long, but you've already pushed all of us to the side, so I couldn't help but want to learn. In fact, it seems to be a little useful." Luo Peishan scolded jokingly, "You little rascal, why haven't I seen you learn anything good from your little sister? Aren't I working hard to learn? All right, don't talk nonsense with me here. Go back and draw. If you draw more, your little sister will be able to work less." "Yes, but there's still something that grandson doesn't understand." "Grandfather, please enlighten me." "Speak, what's the matter?" "Grandson doesn't understand. Why did little sister say that if fine brushwork needs to be recognized, it can't be taught by me personally? You even said that grandson still needs to practice for another 10 or 20 years. That's why I said that you're not as good as third girl. Although there's a saying that, the one who reaches the top first, how many people can really achieve this? If a new painting method wants to spread to the world, at least it needs to be recognized by those master painters, right? The real recognition is the inheritance. What kind of people can you teach? Most of them are just young people and children, and these people don't include those who already have painting teachers. If a certain master painters give you a claptrap and a clown evaluation, what will the result be? Obviously, even those who are interested in fine brushwork will immediately abandon it because they don't want to be degraded. I'm afraid that such people are not in the minority. In this way, you'll need to practice for another 10 or 20 years. Your little sister's method is different. Those who are interested but can't put down their face to learn from you, they'll look at the books and learn by themselves. Others don't know, but at least they can save their face. The subtlety of fine brushwork should be felt by those who have a little contact with it. So even if people are not interested in it, at least they won't reject it. What's more, those painting teachers won't stop their students from learning by themselves. It's hard to estimate how much faster the speed of inheritance will be. Although our family only prepared 500 copies, you see, soon after the first batch is out, there will be people who imitate it. Luo Jingbo suddenly realized, sure enough, little sister is thoughtful. However, if outsiders imitate it, it's fine if they imitate it well, but if they don't, won't it ruin the reputation of fine brushwork? Little sister's efforts will be in vain. Just now, grandfather casually flipped through the books and saw a few interesting gadgets. Luo Peishan pointed out his discovery to Luo Jingbo. It's on the title page, the last page, and some places in the middle. It's our family's logo. Yes, it's our family's logo. It's not a problem to visit the books. But if even our family's logo is imitated, those people can go to jail. As long as we spread the news that the books with Luo family's logo are from you, fine brushwork's reputation will not be damaged. Our family's 500 copies will be crazily snatched. Little sister, you've really thought it through. Luo Jingbo sighed again. Yes, I've thought of all aspects. Well, if there are no other questions, you can go back quickly. Yes, grandson will take his leave. When Luo Peishan was the only one left in the study, he sighed softly. What an intelligent girl. I don't know if you'll have the luck to meet a man who will love you wholeheartedly. That night, Li Hongyuan looked at daily life. Speaking of which, his Wanwan beating people up was nothing. In his previous life, her hands were stained with blood. Of course, those were the real enemies, the enemies of the Qi Yuan dynasty. There were countless people who died indirectly at her hands. He didn't know how she reacted when she first killed people. He saw that she killed people cleanly and neatly, whether it was with a knife or an arrow. She had used anything that could kill people. Once, she even picked up a big stone and smashed the enemy to death. Blood splattered all over her body. There was only determination in her eyes, and she was fearless. Later on, he thought about it. When she died, did she have any resentment towards the Qi Yuan dynasty? He couldn't get an answer. If he could get an answer, if her answer was hatred, would he destroy the Qi Yuan dynasty? No, she wouldn't. Even if she hated, she would only hate certain people and not the entire dynasty. This was because in this land, there were still her close relatives, her friends, and many innocent people. Even though she was a girl, she was more righteous than a man. Li Hongyuan rubbed the bridge of his nose. Sure enough, there were some things that he couldn't think about. Once he thought about it, it was easy to get lost in it. Li Hongyuan suddenly wanted to know what it felt like when Wanwan's little fists hit him. Although he clearly knew that when she really beat someone up, it would definitely not be just for show. Her punches were soft and powerless, but when he thought of her delicate little face and her soft little fists, he still felt that it was a little inconceivable. Li Hongyuan stretched out his hand and touched his abdomen. Then, he poked it with his finger. It was so hard that it would probably hurt her hand. Imagining that state, Li Hongyuan suddenly felt that not only his body was hard, but also the parts that were not supposed to be hard were hard. Seeing that his master seemed to have fallen into a strange state again, Eunuch Mu silently moved 2 steps to the side. "Master, if you continue like this, I'm afraid that you will suffocate yourself before Princess Yu marries you." Fortunately, Li Hongyuan was not immersed in that state. Soon, he picked up the letter and continued to read. When Li Hongyuan saw the tricks that Jingwan used to guard against women, he couldn't help laughing. Well, he had to write this down. If Wan didn't guard against those women who approached him as if he was a thief in the future, he would catch her, strip her, and teach her a lesson. It had to be said that Wan's methods were quite comprehensive. They seemed to be full of tricks, but in fact, they couldn't escape from those tricks. If every man did this, those women with crooked thoughts would probably return in defeat, and those who deliberately designed a honey trap would probably be defeated one by one. Commandery Prince Cheng's title was indeed a little too high. Li Hongyuan didn't want to take Li Ruyu's position as the commandery princess. Chen Zhengmin could even subdue the princess who was favored by noble consort Su. Li Ruyu was really nothing. If she lost her position as the commandery princess and entered the backyard of the Qin family, she would probably disappear. How could she make trouble for Chen Zhengmin? Li Hongyuan acquiesced to those rivals in love, but it didn't mean that he would let them go easily. However, Chen Zhengmin used to be Wan's thing. He was robbed by Li Ruyu, so he had to make Li Ruyu return it at the price of the most important thing. Therefore, he didn't care about the position of the commandery princess. He could use other methods to deal with Chen Zhengmin. Li Hongyuan forgot that it was he who set Li Ruyu up to rob his beloved thing. Therefore, when it came to the logic of robbers, he was the originator. External and internal were 2 completely different sets of principles. As for Luo Jingbua, Li Hongyuan didn't know which family he married in his previous life. Moreover, he seemed to have married a year later, not now. However, he was sure that he had more than one concubine. Obviously, in his previous life, Wan didn't preach to his elder brother. Therefore, the relationship between his sister-in-law and her should be very ordinary. Otherwise, according to her attitude towards Sun Yijia, she would at least stop his elder brother from taking in concubines. After all, whether it was in his previous life or now, Jingwan had done the same thing to her elder brother. Therefore, her influence on her elder brother should be the same. If she stopped him, it would definitely be effective. 2 days later, the gates of the examination hall opened. The students came out one after another. Some were excited, some were depressed. The Qin family finally saw Chen Zhengmin.